Chapter 566. And Lin flew around the crystalline realm on his brick in an attempt to find other realm essence crystals. Xiao, Zhe, Tina, and Shui Zhantian once again curled up beside Lin like salted fish. Only the three blood tribe cultivators continued to hunt crystal mutant beasts for the sake of obtaining their holy blood. If they were lucky, they would be able to obtain a realm essence crystal. After hunting for an entire day, they had only obtained one golden realm essence crystal, 5 blue realm essence crystals, and 13 white realm essence crystals. And Lin was very disappointed, but he knew that this was the correct rate of obtaining realm essence crystals. At this rate, he wouldn't be able to complete his small objective before he left the Void Star section. Sigh. As expected, it's still the fastest way to obtain realm essence crystals. And Lin heaved a forlorn sigh. Master, don't go. It's not safe to kill people and steal their treasures. Shui Zhantian trembled uncontrollably. I agree, Xiaozi said with a concerned expression. How can we not get our shoes wet if we keep walking along the river? And Lin massaged his brows. Half of the team members would basically be crippled if they were to fight in this place. Even the blood tribe cultivators relied on their holy blood to fight, so their combat prowess would be reduced by at least half. They had to leave this place as soon as possible. He thought about it for a moment before deciding to give up on the idea of looting the crystalline realm. Instead, he sped toward the other end of the remorseless realm. He had to leave this place and find another place to search for realm essence crystals. Once he decided to leave this place, his speed became a lot faster. They only killed the mutant beasts that they encountered along the way, and they didn't encounter any danger along the way, nor did they discover any great opportunities. Just as everyone thought that they would be able to smoothly reach the other end of the realm of boundless emotions, they didn't think that they would encounter an extremely terrifying being at the border of the realm. This being was extremely gargantuan, and its body spanned several hundred kilometers. It looked like a continent that blotted out heaven and earth, and it forcibly blocked the exit of the remorseless realm. And Lin slowly landed behind a boulder before looking up at the gargantuan body. From its appearance, it looked like a gigantic whale. Its entire body was inky black, and there were faint rainbow ripples on its body. A pair of golden eyes was like a small burning sun, illuminating the dark world, giving people the illusion that it was daytime. Giant and Lin, what is that thing? Does such a gargantuan creature really exist in this world? Tina was completely petrified by the gargantuan creature before her, and she couldn't even speak properly. She glanced at the whale, only to find that it had a pair of golden eyes and pitch-black skin. Its body was so huge that she couldn't even see the end of it, and Lin shook his head with a grave expression. Who the hell knew what this thing was? However, he could sense from the whale's aura that it was unimaginably vast, so it was clearly an extremely extraordinary being. In this mysterious place, they were restricted by the laws of heaven and earth, so they couldn't use spatial travel. They had to step through the black line in front of them, which was the only way out. But now the only passage to the black line was blocked by the whale. Do you know what that is? And Lin tilted his head and asked. The 3 blood tribe cultivators all shook their heads with dumbstruck expressions. They had also been given a fright by the gargantuan whale. It could be said that this was the most gargantuan creature they had ever seen in their lives. However, Xiao Zhe's expression was grave as he spoke in a low voice. Master, that's a heavenly void beast. Heavenly void beast? And Lin's heart jolted slightly upon hearing this. He had heard of this name from Emperor Zue before. Apparently, this was an extremely fearsome tribe in the galaxy that possessed the ability to engulf heaven and earth. Furthermore, this heavenly void beast has most likely already reached the spatial nirvana stage. Not only can it engulf space, but it can also create a world within its body. It's far more powerful than we can handle. Xiao Zhe's heart suddenly jolted with panic as he spoke, and he latched onto Lin's arm tightly as he said, It's extremely strange for it to appear here. It's as if an earth-shattering plot is taking shape, and its objective is to cut off our path of retreat before killing us from within. And Lin, you're overthinking things. Master, I think Xiao Zhe's words make a lot of sense. This is definitely a plot by the heavens. Xue Zhantian trembled uncontrollably in Lin's arms as he voiced his agreement. And Lin actually didn't want to provoke such a powerful being, so he thought it would be best to avoid it for now. Although the heavenly void beast wasn't guarding this place to target them, it definitely had some ulterior motive. They couldn't just run over like idiots and face it head on. That would be no different from giving their lives away. Which was more important, his life or his D*CK? Of course his life was more important. Even if he preferred death to humiliation, he could still accomplish his small goal in this remorseless continent. After all, this remorseless continent was so huge, and they hadn't even explored it yet. He could still obtain Golden Realm Essence crystals here. All right, let's retreat for now. And Lin thought for a moment before turning to everyone. However, his voice had only just fallen when an earth-shattering boom erupted in the distance. And Lin raised his head to look in the direction of the heavenly void beast and discovered a few figures with extremely powerful auras pouncing toward it. It was clear that they were about to engage in battle. It's two monks and boom! A projection of a golden Buddha materialized in the air. This projection was at least 30,000 feet tall, and it launched a palm strike toward the gargantuan figure in the distance. An earth-shattering boom erupted between heaven and earth as golden shockwaves radiated from the whale's pitch-black body. Its gargantuan body caved in with a radius of several dozen kilometers. Howl! The whale-like heavenly void beast let out a soft cry, and the terrifying sound waves caused the ground to tremble. Its enraged eyes focused on the projection of the golden Buddha, and flames burst forth from its body, leaving two extremely twisted trails of flames in the air before crashing into the projection of the golden Buddha. Boom! The gargantuan golden Buddha was instantly incinerated into nothingness by the flames. The monk within the projection of the golden Buddha stumbled back in retreat, and his entire body seemed to be engulfed in flames that would never be extinguished. Just as the monk's body was engulfed in flames, a black-robed mighty figure enshrouded in black mist unleashed a black mist that engulfed the flames on the monk's body. At the same time, the other monk pointed his Buddha staff toward the whale's eyes. A beam of golden light imbued with an extremely terrifying sharpness pierced through space and landed in the whale's eyes. This time, an earth-shattering roar sounded, and the entire space between heaven and earth began to tremble violently. This heavenly void beast was finally, truly enraged. Its body swayed, and it seemed as if it wanted to shift its body. A woman with a pair of fair and translucent feet, standing atop a lotus projection, flashed toward those figures. The lotus leaf in her hand swayed, and a pink mist of water spread for a radius of 50 kilometers, enshrouding the heavenly void beast's head. Some kind of illusory realm ability was activated. Then, she and the other 3 people began to retreat quickly. TSK. Looks like they want to lure the heavenly void beast away. However, they've underestimated the power of a void nirvana stage heavenly void beast. This level of power is still far from enough. Xiao Zhe shook his head from the side with an air of arrogance. However, and Lin didn't have the leisure to comment on the side. One look was enough to tell that those 2 monks were mighty figures from the Buddhist kingdom of the Western Paradise. As for the person enshrouded in black mist and the celestial maiden holding the lotus, they were the F** King Knight Patrol God and Celestial Maiden, he from the Celestial Court. Under these circumstances, he couldn't just stand by and watch silently. He had to go and help them. Chapter 5:67. Celestial Maiden, he kept retreating with a lotus flower in her hand. The pink mist formed a fixed path. The heavenly void beast was shrouded by the pink mist. It moved its huge body as if it was really going to fly forward with the pink mist. However, in the next instant, the heavenly void beast opened its mouth. The endless darkness formed a huge vortex that seemed to be able to devour everything. It kept sucking in the 4 people who were escaping. The air surged wildly, and the void started to twist. Everything in the world was funneled into the heavenly void beast's mouth. The 4 people seemed to be prepared. One of the monks pointed his staff at the void. For golden bells containing the tie intent emitted the brilliant power of heaven. They enveloped Celestial Maiden He, the night patrol god, and the 2 monks, isolating them from the suction force. However, Xiao's expression changed drastically. Not good. This is not just heavenly void devouring. It's also realm shifting. Everyone be careful. He stepped forward, and a black dragon projection enveloped everyone, including Lin. In the next instant, the galaxy reversed, heaven and earth collapsed, and space changed. All living beings within a radius of 150 kilometers were enveloped by a mysterious void power, and they instantly disappeared on the spot. Before Lin had a chance to react, he had already arrived on a gray continent. Immediately afterward, he was struck by a terrifying spatial compression force. Thankfully, the projection of the black dragon enshrouded his body. Otherwise, his body would have been instantly flattened. He hurriedly looked in the direction of Celestial Maiden He and the others. He found that their golden bells had already cracked. The monk who cast the golden bell was already pale from the terrifying power. He couldn't hold on any longer. Celestial Maiden He and the others all cast defensive spell techniques. However, in the face of this endless spatial compression, they would be unable to hold on sooner or later. "Little Xiao, what do we do now?" And Lin asked urgently. Xiaozi glanced at this gray continent. Some mutant beasts that were brought in inexplicably had already been crushed into minced meat by the spatial power. Their life essence was starting to flow into the void. He frowned. "We can say that we're already inside the heavenly void beast's body. The end of the 150 kilometers of space is a realm of nothingness. No matter how we escape, we won't be able to reach the end. We can only hold on until the next heavenly void beast devours. Only then can we use the spatial tunnel to escape this place." And Lin's body swayed slightly. His face was a little pale. "Is there no other way?" Who knew when the void beast would start devouring again? Under the pressure of this endless space, it wouldn't be long before they turned into minced meat. Xiaozi shook his head. "There might be other ways, but this is the only one I know of." Rumble. Space suddenly trembled, following which a pitch-black whale with golden eyes began to appear. Its body was only a few dozen feet in size, but its aura was terrifying to the extreme. It was as if it was composed of the darkest and most chaotic matter, causing one to tremble with fear. This is the soul of the void? Who would have thought that heavenly void beasts would have something like this within their bodies? Xiao Zai's eyes lit up, and a rare expression of excitement appeared on his face. "Void soul? What is that?" And Lin asked curiously. "That's a type of primal chaos essence that's born within a void beast's body. It's equivalent to another type of energy body for void beasts. Only after devouring enough high-grade creatures and digesting them into energy will have a chance of being born. The divine tool of the Xiao clan's ancient ancestor was forged from the soul of the void, and it's extremely powerful and fearsome." The black whale was currently looking at Celestial Maiden He and the others with rage in its eyes. It was clearly still bearing a grudge for being beaten up. Whoosh! Its tail suddenly swayed, and its body transformed into a black afterimage before crashing into one of the monks. That monk was the one who had pierced its eye with his staff. The monk's expression shifted, and he only had time to unleash an extremely thick golden vine toward the afterimage. However, the destructive power imbued within the black shadow instantly pulverized the golden vine before crashing into the monk's body. Boom! The whale's body crashed into the monk's body, and the monk's body was bent over by the immense force. Countless bloody lines appeared on his skin as if he had been sliced open by countless blades, and blood exploded forth like a bloody mist. Changzong! Another monk viciously unleashed a palm strike toward the whale, and a huge golden palm imbued with a vast Buddhist might swept forth, reducing everything in its path to dust. However, the whale was as fast as a ghost. In the blink of an eye, it had already teleported over a kilometer away, evading the monk's attack. The lotus in Celestial Maiden, his hand glowed brilliantly, and the white lotus enveloped the heavily injured Changzong, healing his severe injuries. Just one strike was enough to severely injure Changzong, who was at the return to void intermediate stage. The terrifying power of the soul of the void made Celestial Maiden He and the others' expressions turn grave. Celestial Maiden He, Chang He, this whale is too powerful. We really can't defeat it. Let's use the joint defensive spell formation to stall for time and wait for the void beast to open the spatial entrance a second time, the night patrol god said. The three of them stood in different positions with tacit understanding. An extremely huge, translucent golden Buddha enveloped them, and the holy and resilient lotus sat beneath it. Black chains wrapped around the golden Buddha, and the destructive power of confinement froze the space around them like an indestructible barrier. Seeing the joint defensive spell formation, an even more terrifying aura of destruction erupted from the whale's pitch-black body. It transformed into a black line and pounced toward the spell formation. Boom! The collision between the whale and the spell formation resulted in an extremely terrifying shockwave, causing the land within a radius of several kilometers to crack and cave in. The spell formation trembled violently, and the blood of the three people within the spell formation churned. The whale began to retreat. It shook its head and transformed into a black line again, crashing into the spell formation with tremendous force. Boom! The spell formation shook violently again, and blood seeped out from the corner of Celestial Maidenhe's mouth. The three of them all wore grave expressions. They knew that they were most likely going to die here. The whale wouldn't stop ramming into the spell formation. If the void beast stopped devouring the outside world, then it was only a matter of time before it died. After the third round of collisions, Buddhist Kingdom Chang, his body swayed slightly. He was also beginning to falter. However, the pitch-black little whale was still full of energy. Greed flashed across its eyes, and it began to accumulate its aura again as it retreated. In the end, it left a black line in the air and ferociously crashed into the spell formation. Right at this moment, an unparalleled blood-red sword pierced through space and stabbed toward the whale. The whale streaked through the air in a curved trajectory and evaded this sudden attack with an extremely ghostly movement technique. Who is it? Celestial Maiden He, the Night Patrol God, and Chang He were overjoyed. They didn't expect that there would be allies coming to their rescue at this time. The flames of hope reignited in their despairing hearts. However, when their gazes converged in the direction of the attack, their smiles began to freeze. Blood tribe? Chang He's heart sank when he saw the three golden-haired, crimson-eyed return to void stage cultivators at the very front. Celestial Maiden, He, and the Night Patrol God were also astonished. They didn't expect that the attackers would be from an opposing force. Were these blood tribe cultivators really not here to kick them when they were down? Then, Celestial Maiden, his gaze focused on a handsome youth. Her beautiful eyes widened again, and she was even more astonished. Night Patrol God, look at that person. He looks so familiar. If it's not an illusion, then that should be Lin. The Night Patrol God's lips twitched slightly. Clearly, he felt that it was particularly absurd to encounter a soul formation stage cultivator here. More importantly, that cultivator was running toward them with a group of blood tribe cultivators. This feeling was even more bizarre. Celestial Maiden, He, Night Patrol God, they're on our side. Don't panic, I'm here to save you. And Lin waved at the two of them in the distance. Celestial Maiden, he, and the night patrol god were slightly taken aback when they heard this. They couldn't tell what kind of feeling they were feeling. They were both a bit dumbfounded in various ways. Was this army really here to save them? Those were 3 blood tribe cultivators. However, looking at how Lin was being protected by everyone, it really didn't seem like he was being held hostage. Rather, he had an important position in the group. So, Lin was here to save them? Their savior was Lin? Chapter 568. The whale's charge was interrupted, and it glared at Lin and the others angrily. It had originally wanted to deal with the enemy that had injured it first, then deal with this group of spectators. Unexpectedly, these spectators took the initiative to attack and threw watermelon skins at it. How could it remain calm? Roar! The whale roared angrily, turned around, and charged toward Lin and the others. Xiaoza extended a hand toward the whale, and a protective wall made of black dragon scales appeared in front of everyone, exuding a vast and boundless dragon might. True dragon wall. Boom! Another earth-shattering explosion sounded, and the energy from the collision spread out wantonly. Even the space began to tremble and crack, but the protective wall made of dragon scales did not budge at all. The whale cried out in pain, and its body staggered back for the first time. There was a pained expression on its face. He blocked it. Celestial Maiden, he cried out in surprise. She was the one who was most aware of how terrifying the whale's charge was. That was an attack that even the combined defense of 3 supreme beings of the return to void stage could not withstand. However, such a terrifying attack was easily blocked by that ordinary-looking young man. Just how strong was that young man? He must be a supreme being of the primordial dragon tribe. The black mist around the night patrol god surged. It was a little fearful, but also a little reverent. Xiaoza's defense was invincible. At this moment, he was not afraid at all in the face of the whale's violent attack. He led everyone toward Celestial Maiden. The whale-shaped body of chaotic essence was unconvinced, and it crashed toward Xiaoza again. Xiaoza once again condensed the true dragon wall. Boom! The collision this time was even more terrifying, and the ground of the entire continent shook violently. Then, the whale retreated with a pained expression. Its golden eyes flickered, and there was a hint of wariness in them. And Lin and the others arrived beside Celestial Maiden and the others unscathed. The 2 groups converged. Celestial Maiden, and the others were surprised by Xiaoza's powerful strength, but they were still a little wary of the blood tribe. And Lin, fellow cultivator, may I ask who these blood tribe cultivators are? Celestial Maiden, he originally wanted to call him Lin, but she suddenly felt that it was inappropriate, so she addressed him as a fellow cultivator instead, treating him as an existence of equal status. Oh, don't worry, they're my servants. We have already established a slave contract with them, so they won't hurt you anymore. And Lin consoled with a smile. Hiss, Celestial Maiden, the night patrol god, Chang and even the heavily injured Changzong who was lying on the ground sucked in a breath of cold air as they stared at Lin in shock. Immortal Lady, his elegant and beautiful face twitched slightly. She looked at the blood clan and then at Lin. She realized that both of them had a matter-of-fact expression on their faces. That seems to be the truth. Then this senior is... The night patrol god tried to calm down and asked. And Lin glanced at his chief disciple and introduced, Oh, he's Xiaoza, my disciple. I'm Master's eldest disciple, and I'm still his only disciple. Xiaoza smiled proudly. Hiss! Everyone sucked in a mouthful of cold air, so cold that they were about to catch a cold. This supreme being of the primordial dragon clan was Lin's disciple? Moreover, he had a proud look on his face. Was it such an honor to be Lin's disciple? Celestial Maiden, his beautiful eyes widened, and her pink lips parted slightly, but she was unable to say a word. The night patrol god was even more dumbfounded. He had just called Xiaoza Senior, but in the end, Xiaoza was actually Lin's disciple. Then should he call Lin great senior? Haha, Senior Lin, what a coincidence. My disciple, Qingji, also knows a fellow cultivator named Lin in the celestial court, Chang he said with a smile. And Lin scratched his head and said kindly, and Lin seems to be the only one in the celestial court. Don't call me senior, I'm not used to it. Chang he. So it wasn't someone with the same name? So it really was that Lin. My God! And Lin had just had his turn to interact with all the young prodigies last year, and in the blink of an eye he was already taking in return to void stage cultivators of the blood tribe as his servants and disciples? This world was too crazy. Chang, he stared at Lin in shock. He could no longer find the words to describe this person. Freak? No, and Lin was even more inconceivable than a freak. Boom, boom, boom. The whale crashed into Lin and the others a few more times, but they were all blocked by Xiao's true dragon wall. Absolute defense was not just for show. It was truly invincible. And Lin, fellow cultivator, have you thought of a way to escape from this place? Celestial Maiden, he knew that this was not the time to sigh with emotion, so she immediately suppressed her emotions and asked Lin. And Lin's status had already risen immeasurably in the eyes of everyone present. After all, he was someone who could take in a primordial dragon tribe cultivator as his disciple. He was definitely a freaking badass. It was exactly because of this that Celestial Maiden he chose Lin as the first person she asked. She was guessing in her mind that perhaps Lin was the reincarnation of some mighty figure, or perhaps he was a mighty figure in disguise who had come to this world to train. And Lin shook his head upon hearing this. Apart from waiting for the heavenly void beast to devour something again, I can't think of any other way to escape. Celestial Maiden he and the others were a little disappointed upon hearing this. However, they felt a little more at ease upon seeing Lin by their side. That's right, their despair had been washed away by Lin's appearance. In their hearts, Lin could only be described as enigmatic and unfathomable. Little Xiao, how long can you last if the body of chaotic essence continues to attack like this? And Lin asked. Xiao Zhe chuckled. If it were me, I could last forever. However, if I had to protect all of you, the body of chaotic essence would expend a lot of energy. I'd probably be able to last 6 hours. 6 hours. This was already a very long time. As long as the heavenly void beast devoured something again within 6 hours, they would be able to successfully escape from this place. Why should we choose to resign ourselves to death? If we're men, then we should be indomitable, mighty, and unyielding. We should make that whale smile in the underworld. Meanwhile, a clear and melodious voice suddenly resounded out at an untimely moment, and it caused the hearts of everyone to shake. And Lin, Cassidy, and the others all stared at a certain white figure in shock. The one who had spoken was that super coward, Shui Zhantian. Little Tian, are you all right? And Lin was panicking. This wasn't like him at all. Could it be that he had been scared out of his wits? Could it be that his sixth brother was also going to meet a tragic end and become a lunatic? No, it's most likely because the laws of heaven and earth have been largely isolated from this whale's body, so its emotions have become more normal. Xiao Zhe suddenly said, and Lin and the others all heaved a sigh of relief as they looked at Shui Zhantian with gratification. Shui Zhantian's face was flushed with embarrassment, and he seemed to have recalled some unpleasant memories as he flared up with rage. Don't look at me like that. I only lost to the heavens by 0.5 point, and my emotions were manipulated once. This is my true, heroic nature. I will definitely take revenge for this blood feud. Everyone was amused by Shui Zhantian's demeanor, and the tense atmosphere eased significantly. Celestial Maiden, whose eyes were glowing as she stared at Shui Zhantian. It was every woman's dream to own such an adorable beast pet. It was a pity that she couldn't go to the ancient divine division. Otherwise, she would definitely do everything in her power to find such an opportunity. And Lin, can I hug that snow soul beast? Celestial Maiden, he blushed a little sheepishly. She felt that since she was trapped here, if she really couldn't get out, she would be able to fulfill a small dream of her life. It would be one less regret. Of course. And Lin smiled as he tossed Shui Zhantian toward Celestial Maiden He. Celestial Maiden, he hugged Shui Zhantian with an elated expression, and she rubbed her face against Shui Zhantian's soft, pristine fur. So soft, so warm. Oi, woman, your breasts are too big. They're squeezing into me. Shui Zhantian protested in a loud voice. Celestial Maiden, he wasn't angry upon hearing this. Instead, she was overjoyed and hugged Shui Zhantian even more enthusiastically. And Lin looked at the protesting Shui Zhantian with an envious expression. Perhaps he didn't know how lucky he was. If possible, Master would also like to suffer in his place. Chapter 569. The tense atmosphere eased slightly, but the whale-shaped heavenly void spirit didn't stop attacking, and it continued to whittle away at Xiao Zhe's energy. And Lin actually quite agreed with Shui Zhantian's words. As opposed to defending blindly, it was better to take the risk and try to fight the heavenly void spirit. Even though defeating the heavenly void spirit might not mean that the heavenly void beast would be able to open its mouth, it would at least buy everyone some time. The most important thing right now was how to defeat this whale. Using normal methods was a bit difficult. After all, everyone had seen what had happened to Changzong. He could be crippled if he wasn't careful. That whale was able to severely wound a return to void intermediate stage mighty figure with a single strike. Xiao Zhe's offensive prowess wasn't as monstrous as his defensive prowess, and everyone else's offensive prowess wasn't much more powerful than Changzhang's either. If they were to switch from defense to offense, it would truly be over for them if the whale took them down one by one. After discussing for a while, everyone came to a consensus, which was that Xiao Zhe would be responsible for protecting everyone, while everyone else would be responsible for attacking the whale. That way, even though the team would lose one of their main attackers, they would at least be able to stabilize the situation and avoid any unforeseen dangers. The whale-shaped heavenly void spirit crashed into Xiao Zhe's true dragon wall with a resounding boom and was knocked back again. At this moment, and Lin and the others finally sprang into action. 100,000 battle souls surged forth from the banners in a frenzy to form a blood sea sealing formation, trapping the whale within it. At the same time, countless crimson battle souls swept toward the whale like sabers and swords. A lotus over 10,000 feet in size descended from the sky, freezing the space around it and causing the whale to falter momentarily. It was also in that instant that the Night Patrol God's countless black chains seized this opportunity to bind the whale's body. At the same time, the three people responsible for beheading the enemy began to use their most powerful moves. Countless golden symbols revolved around Chang He's staff, and a power imbued with great benevolence and might descended from the sky, forming a pillar of light with a radius of several hundred meters before crashing into the whale's body. The earth tremored violently, and everything within the radius of the pillar of light was instantly pulverized. The terrifying power imbued within the pillar of light threatened to puncture the entire continent. Woo! The whale let out a startled cry. At this moment, Tobias had already appeared in front of the whale. He launched both of his fists at the same time, and the space within a radius of 5 kilometers began to warp and crack like a spider web. The air between heaven and earth was also compressed into a flat shape by his fists. At this moment, the heavens collapsed and the earth cracked. At this moment, the pitch-black body of the whale-shaped void soul actually showed signs of collapsing. However, it seemed to have been enraged by Tobias' attack, and its body became extremely black. In the instant that Tobias unleashed his attack, it broke free from the lotus flower and the chains before transforming into a black streak that crashed toward Tobias. Tobias' body twisted and contorted from the terrifying collision, and he almost exploded into a cloud of blood mist. If it weren't for the fact that the blood race possessed incredible vitality, Chang He or Celestial Maiden, he would have died on the spot. A crimson sword projection descended from the sky in the instant that the whale crashed into Tobias. It tore through space at a speed even faster than a bolt of lightning before instantly puncturing the whale's body. Woo! The whale's body was almost sliced in half by the sword projection, and it let loose a frenzied roar of rage. This won't do. Our combined attack isn't powerful enough to kill it. Hurry up and come back. Xiao Zhe's expression shifted as he hurriedly yelled at everyone. Everyone had unleashed their most powerful spell techniques, which were extremely taxing on their energy, so they couldn't use them a second time. After realizing that spell techniques of this caliber wouldn't be able to kill the whale, they immediately flew toward Xiao Zhe without any hesitation. Of course, the whale wasn't going to let them go so easily. A boundless aura erupted from its body, and boundless might crash down upon everyone as if it were imbued with the power of heaven and earth. Cassidy was just dragging the severely wounded Tobias toward Xiao Zhe when an extremely terrifying sense of impending doom engulfed her body in the next instant. This was a sense of imminent annihilation. Thankfully, Xiao Zhe had also predicted the whale's target, and he instantly unleashed his power to materialize a true dragon wall behind Cassidy. Boom! An earth-shattering boom erupted as a collision more fearsome than any that had occurred in the past caused the space around them to shatter, and the earth to cave in and shatter. Crack! Faint cracks began to appear on the true dragon wall. Xiao Zhe's invincible defense was showing signs of crumbling after being hurriedly unleashed. At the same time, he was struck by a fearsome backlash, and blood flowed from the corners of his lips as his blood churned. In the sky above, an extremely dazzling light suddenly erupted from the lotus flower again as it unleashed its spatial seal technique. 100,000 battle souls held in rage as the power of the Crimson Formation was raised to its peak. Black chains pierced through space before hurtling toward the whale. At this moment, everyone chose to overdraft their strength in an extremely tacit manner, and once again unleashed their most powerful restraining power on the whale. This was their plan B, which was to unleash their most powerful attack after the heavenly void spirit unleashed its most powerful attack. This was their plan B, which was to create that split-second opportunity for someone. A white light flashed, and a beautiful fairy appeared within a radius of 100 meters around the whale. Her slender hands were pressed onto Enlin's shoulders, and a peculiar power enshrouded Enlin. Golden veined patterns appeared on Enlin's forehead, from which a large eye appeared and golden ripples began to proliferate outward. Divine plunder technique. He didn't know what he could plunder from the heavenly void spirit with this technique, nor did he know how he was going to defeat this terrifyingly powerful heavenly void spirit. However, he knew that he had to do something. Even if he had to try his luck, he had to see if he could plunder an important spell technique from the heavenly void spirit. This was the only thing he could do at the moment. Everyone turned to look at Enlin. At this moment, he was the most important person. Seeing as they were unable to kill the whale, Enlin's technique was their only hope. Enlin was completely dumbstruck after unleashing his divine plunder technique, as he was unable to attain any spell technique or power that he could plunder from the heavenly void spirit's spell technique feedback. Just as he thought he had failed, a fearsome suction force suddenly erupted from his golden eye pattern, forming a spatial vortex. The whale-shaped heavenly void spirit let loose a wail of anguish, and it had only just begun to struggle before it was sucked into the golden eye pattern without any room for resistance. Enlin blinked with a dumbstruck expression. At this moment, the divine plunder technique was complete, and it began to disappear. Everyone was completely dumbstruck upon seeing this, and some of them even forgot to breathe. After a long while, Celestial Maiden, he murmured to herself. The heavenly void spirit was absorbed by Enlin. Xiao Zhe came to his senses before turning to Enlin with reverence on his face. I thought the Xiao clan's patriarch was already very bad *SS for refining a divine tool using the body of chaotic essence. But who would have thought that Master would be even more bad asterisk assess? How domineering is this? How admirable is this? Everyone else turned to look at Enlin with awe and veneration on their faces, and the image in the air above them became larger and larger. Although Enlin was dumbstruck, he quickly came to a realization as to what was going on. His divine plunder technique had the ability to plunder its target's spell techniques and power aptitude. However, he was currently within the heavenly void beast's body. So could it be that his true target wasn't this heavenly void spirit, but the heavenly void beast instead? Furthermore, the heavenly void spirit was a type of body of chaotic essence that was born within the heavenly void beast's body. It could be said that it was a type of special energy that belonged to the heavenly void beast. Furthermore, the heavenly void spirit was a type of body of chaotic essence that was born within the heavenly void beast's body. It could be said that it was a type of special energy that belonged to the heavenly void beast. This was the only conclusion that Enlin could come up with. However, there was another problem that he had to deal with. Seeing as he had already plundered the body of chaotic essence, why didn't he feel like he could use it at all? Where did it go? He didn't have any spell techniques or aptitude. It couldn't have just disappeared into thin air, right? With no other choice, he could only sense the condition of his body, consciousness, and sea of vital energy. In the end, his consciousness stopped at his sea of vital energy, and his eyes widened as he drew a sharp intake of breath. Chapter 570. Within a vast sea of vital energy, the white flaming vermilion bird soared through the air, illuminating the entire sea of vital energy like the sun. And Kirin floated above the sea of vital energy with a bored expression and did a slow backstroke, revealing his round belly. He was no longer able to defeat the flaming vermilion bird above his sea of vital energy. It was all Enlin's fault for absorbing the power of that drop of vermilion bird essence blood. Otherwise, he would still be on par with the vermilion bird. Thankfully, the vermilion bird didn't like to fight, and it stopped after bullying Enlin for a while. And Kirin was very depressed. Even though he wasn't fighting anymore, he felt like the vermilion bird was just trying to show off, but he couldn't do anything about it. Right at this moment, his sea of vital energy suddenly surged violently, alerting in Kirin and the flaming vermilion bird. And Kirin turned toward a certain direction, and his eyes suddenly lit up. He discovered that a black whale had appeared in his sea of vital energy. The whale was completely confused, and it surveyed its surroundings with its golden eyes, unable to comprehend what was going on. Right at this moment, a golden baby with lightning flashing all over its body had already stepped onto its head. It was jumping around excitedly, as if it had discovered a very fun toy. The whale had never been humiliated like this before. It immediately let loose an enraged roar as massive waves surged through its sea of vital energy, and it unleashed its full power to push upward. Bam! And Kirin was knocked flying into the sky, and his body almost crumbled from the fearsome force. The whale didn't know where it was, but it was a body of chaotic essence, and it couldn't be humiliated. A disdainful smile appeared on its face at the sight of Kirin being knocked flying, and its aura surged into the sky as it surveyed its surroundings. No matter where it was invincible. Boom, boom, boom. Space rumbled. A chill suddenly ran down the whale's spine, and an extremely fearsome sense of danger enshrouded its entire body. It raised its head to discover boundless golden lightning spreading through the sky before crashing down upon it with devastating power. At this moment, the sea of vital energy transformed into a lightning hell, and all of the negative emotions that in Kirin had been repressed by the white vermilion bird completely erupted. The golden void lightning was unleashed at full power, and the whale's anguished wails erupted. Was Kirin powerful? Of course he was. Just by borrowing the power of Enlin's golden void lightning, he was able to unleash power comparable to that of a return to void stage mighty figure. Now this was Kirin's home turf. He had been repressed for so long, so how could he not take care of a weakened body of chaotic essence? Thus, The whale was only able to gloat for 3 seconds before it was pummeled by Kirin. And Lin finally withdrew his consciousness after witnessing this scene in his sea of vital energy. Then he saw that everyone was staring at him with all kinds of expressions. There was shock, disbelief, curiosity, reverence, and fanaticism. "What are you looking at?" And Lin curled his lips. "Fellow Taoist and Lin, did you really devour the void soul?" The night patrol god asked in a trembling voice. "Do you feel anything wrong with your body? How does it taste? Don't tell me you're stuffed?" He Xinggu didn't know what to say. After thinking for a while, she decided to express her concern, and Lin rolled his eyes. "It's not like I ate it. How can I be full? It ran into my energy sea." Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. It ran into the energy sea? How could that be possible? The energy sea can hold a body of chaotic essence? Tobias, who was meditating on the ground, couldn't help but ask. "I don't know. In any case, I have a child and a little vermilion bird in my energy sea, so it's no surprise that I have a whale." And Lin shrugged with a resigned expression. Everyone. "Celestial maiden he. By the way, are we the same immortal?" Xiao Zhe was very excited. "As expected of master. You're so awesome. So we've taken care of the body of chaotic essence now?" Chang He asked, and Lin shook his head. "My spell technique only lasts for 10 minutes, which means that it should reappear here after 10 minutes. He knew that his divine plunder technique was not permanent. Instead, it had a time limit. The time limit was 10 minutes. Once the 10 minutes were up, the plundering power would return to the original life form, so his deduction was reasonable. Everyone had just calmed down when they heard this, but they immediately tensed up again. Thus, they began to discuss how to deal with the heavenly void soul after it reappeared. Time passed by slowly, and 10 minutes flew by in the blink of an eye. Celestial Maiden He and the others stared at Lin as if they were facing a formidable foe. And Lin was also starting to get nervous. How would the heavenly void soul reappear? It wouldn't come out of his mouth like Kirin did, right? It definitely wouldn't come out of his mouth, right? That's right, the whale was way too big, and Lin suddenly thought of a possibility that sent chills running down his spine. Could it be that he would explode due to the whale's size? He immediately cast his consciousness into his sea of vital energy. At this moment, the feeble whale suddenly felt a powerful summoning power, as if it was trying to bring it back to its original world. Tears suddenly began to well up in the whale's eyes. Its power was being completely suppressed here, and that little lightning person was being bullied like crazy. Who would have thought that it would finally be able to return home? Happiness had come too suddenly. Its body slowly floated up before it suddenly leaped toward a certain space. And Kirin looked at the rising whale with curiosity and scratched his head in confusion. A smug smile appeared on the whale's face before it spat at Kirin. "We'll never meet again. Trash that can only be trapped in this cage," the whale said through its consciousness. And Kirin's expression faltered at this moment. The white, flaming phoenix above the sea of vital energy also faltered in its movements. In the next instant, lightning wreaked havoc throughout the entire sea of vital energy. Holy vermilion flame, scorching, heavenly sea. The whale let loose a heart-wrenching wail. At the same time, the summoning power was completely pulverized by the boundless holy flames and golden void lightning. A minute later, the whale lay on the sea of vital energy on the brink of death. And Kirin pulled its head along with a lightning rope and glided slowly over the sea of vital energy. The white flaming phoenix spat out holy flames from time to scorch the whale's bum and Lin. My God! Could this be the legendary divine-level death wish? All of a sudden, everyone fell silent. Everyone looked at Lin with curiosity in their eyes. 10 minutes have already passed. Where's the whale's body of chaotic essence? And Lin's lips twitched. I don't know what's going on, but it looks like the whale can't come out anymore. It's completely trapped in the sea of vital energy, everyone. Is it really unable to come out? Then the spell techniques. We prepared. Chang, he was a little uneasy, and Lin nodded. We can retreat now. I can sense that the power that's forcing it to come back has already disappeared. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief upon hearing this, but at the same time, they were also struck by an indescribable sense of loss. It was as if everyone had prepared a trump card in advance and fought the boss together, only for the boss to not come out at the same time. The heavenly void beast felt as if it had lost something due to the power of summoning it being cut off. Its gargantuan body shuddered involuntarily. Chapter 571. The heavenly void beast discovered an extremely shocking fact. The heavenly void spirit that it had nurtured for tens of thousands of years had disappeared from its body. That was the body of chaotic essence. It had absorbed countless life essence and chaotic matter before fusing its essential power into its body to form the heavenly void spirit. The world within a whale's body was equivalent to a human's sea of vital energy. If it didn't use its consciousness to observe its body, it would normally be unable to see what was happening within. It was exactly because of this that it was completely dumbstruck after realizing that it had lost the body of chaotic essence. It wanted to use the shared senses and memories of the body of chaotic essence to see what had happened, only to discover that the connection between the two had been completely severed, and it no longer had the authority to share or control it. Howl! The whale let loose an enraged roar, and the power within its body suddenly exploded forth, causing the ground within a radius of over 500 kilometers to tremor and crack open. Gale force winds swept through the air, and it was as if the end of the world had arrived. It turned toward Lin and the others with an enraged expression, who had yet to be digested within its body. At the time, the only ones that could come into contact with the body of chaotic essence were these people that had been swallowed into its body. The body of chaotic essence was a virtually indestructible existence within its body, so it didn't mind and allowed the body of chaotic essence to battle. However, it looked like it had been too careless. The disappearance of the body of chaotic essence definitely had something to do with those people. Boom! An extremely terrifying spatial power began to crush toward Lin and the others. Xiaoza had already unleashed the projection of a black dragon to enshroud everyone to keep the fearsome spatial power at bay. The heavenly void beast is enraged. It looks like we've already enraged it by destroying its heavenly void spirit. The night patrol god's voice was very calm, as if he had already anticipated this. The internal pressure has been lifted, so we can think about how we're going to get out of here. Merlin's expression was a lot more relaxed as he spoke with a smile. Xiaoza rolled his eyes. The internal pressure has been lifted. This spatial compression is several times more powerful than before, and I'm having a hard time. This is no easier than withstanding the repeated attacks from the heavenly void spirit. How long can you last then? Cassidy's heart began to race. Xiaoza had a vitality pill in his mouth. Even if I take pills and use spells at the same time, my energy will be completely depleted after 6 hours. And Lin immediately said, since that's the case, let's quickly discuss how to escape from here. It's unrealistic to passively wait for the whale to open its mouth and swallow us. Everyone nodded before turning their gazes to Lin. And Lin's expression froze, and he said with some confusion, "Why are you all looking at me?" Little did he know that ever since he devoured the body of chaotic essence and turned the tide, his prestige in the team had become so high. Under such circumstances, everyone subconsciously wanted to hear his thoughts first. Fellow Taoist and Lin, what do you think? Immortal lady, he asked with a smile. And Lin. A bunch of return to void stage mighty figures were waiting for a soul formation stage, Cultivator, like him, to express his opinion. Was this really a good idea? I can't think of anything for the time being. You guys go ahead. And Lin felt a headache coming on. Thus, everyone began to try all kinds of methods to escape. Tobias forcibly tore open a spatial rift, only to find to his dismay that he could only travel through this small world and was unable to return to the outside world. This was actually something that everyone had already anticipated. Chang He had released over 10,000 golden cicadas to explore the space outside the continent, but they still hadn't discovered any valuable information. Everyone else was also trying their best to find a way out of this predicament. Time slowly passed by, but their efforts were still to no avail. Everyone was starting to feel a little dejected, and Lin felt like he was trapped within the heavenly void beast's body. So could he use the body of chaotic essence as a reference to what he had done? He was initially a little hesitant to use this spell technique, as he was afraid that he would enrage the heavenly void beast again and worsen the situation. However, he had no choice but to try it again after seeing how helpless everyone was. Divine Plunder Technique. Golden ripples proliferated outward before merging into heaven and earth. Dense amounts of information regarding spell techniques and natural endowments instantly flooded Lin's mind, giving him a splitting headache. He had experienced this feeling before. That was when he had tried to plunder Xiao Tu's spell techniques and natural endowments. He didn't have time to look through the information in detail, so he decided to choose blindly. A wave of dizziness washed over him as he abruptly chose a certain piece of information. PFFF. And Lin threw up a mouthful of blood, and the image of the golden eye disappeared as he collapsed to the ground in exhaustion. Master! Holy Leader! Mr. and Lin! Everyone's expressions shifted upon seeing this, and they immediately rushed over to support Lin. I'm fine. And Lin waved his hands in a feeble manner. He sensed the power that he had plundered, and a peculiar expression appeared on his face. Heavenly void fertility. Absorb the boundless energy within the heavenly void. After accumulating a core of life, one can successfully reproduce the offspring of the heavenly void beast. And Lin's lips twitched upon hearing this. So he had risked his life just to steal the power to give birth? And it was the power to reproduce the offspring of the heavenly void beasts. He was a human. However, Lin developed a sense of enlightenment toward the true intent behind this heavenly void fertility. He felt like he could also absorb the boundless energy within the heavenly void fertility. Let's do it! He activated his cultivation method, and sure enough, some kind of power within the heavenly void began to flow toward his body. At the same time, his stomach began to swell with pain, which was then followed by a burst of excruciating pain. And Lin looked down, and his body shuddered as he discovered that his stomach was bulging. Holy F asterisk CK. Was he F asterisk king pregnant? Stop! Stop! He immediately stopped the spell technique. But the power of the heavenly void surging toward him didn't stop so quickly. Bam! And Lin's stomach exploded, and a mist of blood and internal organs flew forth, splattering onto everyone's faces. Celestial Maiden, He, Chang He, and the Night Patrol God's minds all went blank as they stared blankly at the exploding Lin. Master exploded. Shuizhantian was completely dumbstruck. His white fur was stained with blood. Giant Lin exploded. Tina's body stiffened as she sat on Lin's shoulder. Master exploded. Xiao Zhe's legs gave out from under him, and the defensive spell technique he had been maintaining almost collapsed. And Lin's breathing was extremely feeble, and his voice trembled. What are you all waiting for? I think. I can still be saved. At the same time, the heavenly void beast at the border of the remorseless realm felt like it had lost something again. All of a sudden, it felt that everything it had worked hard for had become dull and uninteresting. Ah, why did it want to reproduce here? What was so good about giving birth? Who was it? Why did it come here? What was it living for? The gargantuan whale was completely dumbstruck. Chapter 572. Several returned to Void Stage mighty figures unleashed healing spell techniques on Lin at the same time to stabilize his injuries. He also swallowed a blood Rakshasa pill. He had no choice as his injuries were simply too severe. The blood Rakshasa pill was an 8th grade immortal pill, and he only had 2 of them in his storage ring. both of which could regenerate one's blood and injuries at an extremely fast rate. After that, a red light erupted from his heart. Immediately afterward, all of his blood and internal organs were drawn toward Lin's stomach again, and all of them glowed with a red, crystal-like light as they flew toward Lin's stomach. It was as if an extremely powerful blood tribe cultivator was undergoing rebirth. Cassidy, Merlin, and Tobias were all quite dejected upon seeing the blood fly back toward them. They were waiting for the holy leader's injuries to be stabilized before rushing over to clean up the site of the explosion and lapping up the blood on their faces and clothes. Blood splattered all over the ground. However, reality was always so cruel. Not only were the blood tribe mighty figures feeling like this was cruel, but even Lin was feeling like this was extremely cruel. Because he had courted death this time, he had wasted an incomparably precious immortal pill for nothing. His heart ached. Within the remorseless realm of the Void Star section, Howl, the heavenly void beast, suddenly became enraged as it let loose an enraged roar. Its body suddenly rose into the air as it looked down at its own genitals, wondering if there was something wrong with them. However, it was unable to find anything. Perhaps the problem wasn't external injuries, but rather its internal sexual function had suddenly failed. Wait, I'm suddenly impotent. The heavenly void beast's gargantuan body suddenly shuddered as a blank expression appeared on its face, as if it was unable to accept this terrifying reality. Who could endure the despair of suddenly failing just as they were about to give birth to a child? It tried to use its heavenly void reproductive power again, only to find that it was unable to do so. The heavenly void beast's eyes widened with shock. It really was impotent. Howl! Howl! The heavenly void beast roared in a frenzy, as if it were sobs of grief and indignation, as well as roars of despair. At that moment, heaven and earth crumbled, space tremored, and the sun and moon wept at the same time. After crying its heart out, the heavenly void beast finally caught its breath, and it cast its consciousness toward its internal world. It had a feeling that its reproductive problem had something to do with the people inside this world. However, at that moment, a wave of fluctuation spread in all directions, and its body suddenly trembled. The familiar feeling, the feeling of his erection, the feeling of wanting to have a child, the feeling of the void continuously flowing into his body, had returned. The whale was ecstatic. It immediately returned to its original position and continued to lie down, trying to hold something in within the world within the whale's body, and Lin could sense a burst of power flowing away, and he couldn't help but heave a faint sigh. The blood Rakshasa pill was very effective in healing physical injuries. In just half an hour, his external injuries were completely healed. He believed that his internal injuries would be completely healed within 2 hours. Everyone else stopped healing and began to ask about Lin's condition, as well as why his body exploded. Naturally, Lin couldn't say anything about his body exploding. He was courting death by using that so-called fertility ability, and in the end it went too far. If this kind of thing were to spread, he would be laughed at to death. He came up with a random excuse to fool everyone before focusing the discussion on how to escape from this world again. In any case, he didn't dare to use the divine plunder technique anymore. Drawing skills from the vast sea of spell techniques and power talents was like drawing a lottery, and the chances of winning were extremely low. Furthermore, every time he drew a skill, he would be crippled. When was this going to end? He was going to die if he kept using it. Everyone tried using all types of tools and spell techniques, but to no avail. Before they knew it, Lin's injuries had also begun to heal. Thus, he began to feel restless again. He pulled out his vermilion bird mirror. Mirror, mirror, tell me, how do I escape from this accursed place now? A crisp, tender voice sounded, "My hen." And Lin, slap. And Lin slammed the mirror into the ground with rage. "What do I need you for?" "I really am useless, so I beg of you, please let me go. I want to go home. the vermilion bird mirror pleaded with an earnest expression, and Lin's chest constricted, and he picked up the mirror before calming himself down with a smile on his face. "No, my little mirror, I won't leave you because we're family." The vermilion bird mirror remained silent as a white ripple swept toward Lin. It then chuckled coldly. "Huh, I almost believed your bullsh *t. You were clearly thinking, you stupid C**NT. If it weren't for its reflective *ability, I would have thrown it into a cesspool a long time ago." And Lin's hand trembled, and he almost dropped the mirror. "Holy F***CK, you can read minds." "I'm an erudite mirror. If I can't even read minds, then you're really underestimating me." The mirror chuckled lightly, but its voice was filled with disdain, and Lin had nothing to say to that, and he could only silently put the mirror away. He couldn't rely on the mirror anymore, so he had to think of something else. But what could he do? All of the return to void stage mighty figures had already tried everything they could think of. Among his special hacks, only the divine plunder technique had a direct effect on the heavenly void beast should he try again? And Lin was itching to try, but he was a little hesitant at the thought of the terrifying backlash he would receive when using the spell technique. Sweat was already beginning to pour from Xiao Zhe's forehead, and he was clearly not going to last much longer. Everyone else might not even be able to last 15 minutes in the face of this terrifying spatial compression force. There really wasn't much time left for them. So be it, I'll do it faster this time. I don't have to think about anything and just blindly choose. That way, the pain will be less painful. And Lin took a deep breath, and the image of a golden eye appeared on his forehead again. Divine plunder technique. Golden ripples proliferated outward, and countless spell techniques and powers began to surge toward him. And Lin didn't have to think about anything before plundering one of the powers. His body swayed slightly, and he half knelt to the ground again. At this moment, within the remorseless realm, the gargantuan whale suddenly went blind. The entire heaven and earth suddenly dimmed, as if two suns had disappeared, and the stars became extremely dazzling again. The gargantuan whale was completely dumbstruck this time, and it let loose panicked roars as it destroyed everything around it. Wah, wah, wah. An expression of elation suddenly appeared on Lin's face. Golden leaf-fire eyes. Once unleashed, all things will be incinerated. It can even incinerate space itself, destroy an entire world, and crush all obstacles. This spell technique looked like it was going to explode, and Lin looked up into the boundless void, and a determined smile appeared on his face. "Now, I'll let you have a taste of what it feels like to have your spell technique burn in your stomach." His eyes suddenly turned golden as he spoke. His eyes were as bright as the sun, illuminating the entire world before bursting into flames. Chapter 573. Everyone noticed Lin's reaction, and they all turned to look at Lin with expressions of surprise and anticipation on their faces. Right at this moment, boundless flames burst forth from Lin's eyes, which began to incinerate the entire space around him. Golden flames continued to spread through the air as the earth below was transformed into a sea of flames. The rocks on the ground began to melt and crumble, and the space around them began to warp and crack. In just a few short seconds, the entire space had been enshrouded by boundless flames, and they continued to spread into the distance. That's terrifying. What kind of flames are these? Cassidy's eyes widened with astonishment. These are burning heaven's flames. They're truly burning the heavens and boiling the seas. This is what a man should do. Shuizhantian yelled with excitement on his face. Burning heavens, flames, my A***s. These are clearly fire golden flames that have the power to incinerate even space itself. Look at Master's flames, and they're extremely pure goldenly flames. Perhaps they really can burn a hole in this world. Xiao Zhe rolled his eyes at Shuizhantian before turning to Lin with reverence in his eyes. After venting its emotions, The gargantuan whale sensed that something was amiss within its body, and it couldn't help but send its consciousness into that world, upon which it was greeted by the sight of a boundless sea of flames. The gargantuan whale. What kind of experience was this, to have the space within its body suddenly set aflame after it had been blinded? 10,000 curses were no longer enough to describe its current feelings. This familiar aura, this familiar power. The gargantuan whale drew a sharp intake of breath. Wasn't this the king power of its eyes? Immediately afterward, it noticed a human with eyes that were identical to its own, and he was currently unleashing a devastating inferno within its body like a fiend celestial. Are these my eyes? The gargantuan whale's flesh crawled as an extremely terrifying thought occurred to it. The disappearance of the heavenly void spirit, the sudden onset of sexual impotence, and the sudden blindness. Could it all be because of that man, my God? What kind of monster did I absorb into my body? A sense of remorse and horror welled up in the gargantuan whale's heart. Anyone who knew that the food they had eaten would steal their own power or even burn their own stomach would feel the same way. No, I can't let him go on like this. The giant whale immediately circulated its power to unleash a solidification spell technique. The fire golden flames, which were spreading endlessly into the void in the distance, suddenly came to a halt, and the speed at which they spread slowed down. The expressions of Lin and the others turned solemn because they knew that another power had interfered. It was very likely that it was done by the void beast. It already knew about this. Thinking of this, everyone became much more nervous. It was as if they had set fire to the house of a very powerful being and were caught red-handed. Even so, and Lin wasn't going to stop setting the place on fire, because if they didn't burn down this house, they would be trapped here. Rumble. In the void above the continent, an incomparably huge black shadow suddenly appeared. It had a smooth, round head, eyes closed, and its body almost replaced the entire void. As soon as it appeared, it gave off an indescribable pressure, as if they were facing a supreme god. And Lin looked up at the black shadow, knowing that it was the projection of the gargantuan whale's consciousness. His expression was calm, and there was no hint of fear on his face. You stole the power of my eyes. An extremely authoritative intent was cast upon everyone. It was impossible to describe what kind of language this was, but everyone could understand what it meant. It was me. And Lin nodded. Everyone was shocked to hear this, and they turned to look at Lin with astonishment. He could even steal the power of the void beast? Bad *SS. Xiao Zhe, on the other hand, had a guess in his heart when he saw the flames burning in Lin's eyes. The power that he was most proud of had been stolen by Lin, and he knew just how powerful that power was. Now that his guess had been confirmed, the reverence in his heart grew even stronger. You stole the heavenly void spirit as well. That thing I did before was also your doing? The gargantuan whale's consciousness was as vast as the ocean, but its words were also quite turbulent at this moment. It's all my doing. And Lin didn't choose to hide the truth. Without enough power to threaten the void beast, there would never be a chance to negotiate with it. Boom! An extremely fearsome aura descended from the sky, and even the boundless golden flames were forced back. It was clear that the void beast was enraged. How dare you do this? Aren't you afraid that I'll kill you right now? Boundless killing intent descended, making it difficult for everyone to breathe. And Lin chuckled coldly. I was just a bystander and didn't do anything. You ate me and now you want to kill me? Do you expect me to obediently let you digest me? The void beast seemed to choke upon hearing this. After a moment of silence, it spoke again. Return the power of the heavenly void spirit and my eyes to me, and I'll let you go. And Lin shook his head. The heavenly void spirit has already been devoured by me, so there's no way for it to be returned. I can return the power of your eyes to you, but you have to let all of us go. You! Boom! The aura in the sky surged violently and killing intent surged. And Lin wasn't afraid of it. If it could use its mental projection to attack, then it wouldn't have waited until now to show its face. Either it couldn't attack, or it had to pay an extremely high price to do so. Think about it carefully. I'll only give you 1 minute to think about it. After 1 minute, if you don't agree, then you won't have another chance. After I die, your eyes will be blind forever. Not only that, but I'll also take a few more of your abilities. And Lin spoke with a calm and collected expression. His confidence, pride, and determination were completely displayed. The whale was silent for a few seconds before speaking. Those who attacked me before can't leave. Everyone else can go. It was clearly making a huge concession. However, it couldn't just let everyone go. It was a mighty void beast, and it had to maintain its dignity. And Lin shook his head with determination. I've said it before. Let everyone go. No one is missing. He continued. You have half a minute to think about it. Celestial Maiden, his beautiful eyes lit up, and she looked at the man beside her with a hint of admiration. Everyone else was also filled with admiration as they looked at Lin's fearless and unrelenting expression. It was as if his figure was shining with light. The whale was very conflicted. It really wanted to kill Lin and the others on the spot. However, it couldn't do without its eyes. Furthermore, if Lin were to really go all out and steal a few of its abilities, such as sexual functions, into his grave, the consequences would be unimaginable. He shuddered with fear. However, if it really let everyone go, then wouldn't it be extremely humiliating? It would be the equivalent of being beaten up, having its most precious treasure stolen, and having to tearfully let these people go. In the end, time flew by in a flash, and the giant whale had spent the longest half a minute of its life. Finally, when the time limit was about to end, it heaved a long sigh. All right, I agree, but you have to return my eyes to me first. A faint smile appeared on Lin's face, as if he wasn't afraid that the giant whale would go back on its word. As you wish. Moments later, an invisible ripple proliferated, and the void beast felt as if it had gained something more. When the giant whale opened its eyes again, its golden pupils glowed brightly like two small golden suns, exuding boundless light and heat. The giant whale was so moved that it was about to cry. The journey from blindness to regaining its sight was simply too arduous. Now, it's time for you to fulfill your promise. And Lin clasped his hands behind his back and looked up at the projection in the sky with a calm expression. Chapter 574. Everyone turned to look at the projection of the giant whale with tense expressions on their faces in fear that it would go back on its word. The giant whale remained silent, and its golden eyes flashed as the goldenly flames in this world began to dissipate. The space within a radius of over 50 kilometers had already been twisted and shattered, and the ground beneath it had been scorched to the point where it had been completely obliterated. A pained expression appeared on the whale's face as it turned toward Lin again. Human, what's your name? The whale asked. A faint smile appeared on Lin's face. You want revenge? I guess I can tell you. My name is Enritian. Cassidy. Shui Zhantian wore an excited expression. That's a domineering name. No wonder you dared to challenge me. I'll remember you. Enritian. The projection of the whale's consciousness began to slowly dissipate. Celestial Maiden, he and the others' lips twitched, and they didn't know what to say. In the next instant, the power of the star shift technique began to invade heaven and earth, and the two worlds were replaced. In the blink of an eye, everyone found themselves on a shattered piece of land, and the sky was filled with countless stars. Everything was very familiar. The only thing that surprised everyone was that some kind of earth-shattering battle seemed to have taken place here. The ground was riddled with scars, as if it were the aftermath of the apocalypse. The giant whale looked at everyone with a sullen expression, and its gaze lingered on Lin for a few seconds before it turned away and continued with its business. Ha ha ha, we finally made it out. Cassidy and Merlin danced with joy. Lucy, you didn't think that you'd be able to see me again, did you? Tobias looked up into the sky with tears streaming down his face. Tina sat on Lin's shoulder and buried her face in her hands. Why am I always so useless? I'm even worse than a sea urchin. Shui Zhantian trembled uncontrollably in Lin's arms, and Xiaozhe held onto Lin's arm tightly again. And Lin shook his head and heaved a faint sigh. It looked like the terrifying explosion of emotions had returned after returning to this world. Celestial Maiden He, the Night Patrol God, Changhe, and Changzong all wore different expressions, and they were clearly also affected by some kind of emotion. However, Changzong and Chang, who were chanting Buddhist scriptures in low voices, which seemed to be more effective in controlling their emotions. Mr. Lin, it's all thanks to you that we were able to survive this ordeal. I'd like to thank you for that. Celestial Maiden He's figure was lithe and graceful. She bowed and expressed her thanks to Lin and the others. As her dress fluttered in the wind, it was as if she were a beautiful lotus flower. The Night Patrol God, Changhe, and Changzong also expressed their gratitude. The Night Patrol God, Changhe and Changhe, Changhe and Changhe. Master, that giant whale is now blocking the exit of the remorseless realm. Then we. Xiaozhe spoke uneasily as he gazed at the gigantic whale in front of him, whose borders couldn't be seen clearly. Xiaozhe was like a completely insecure little child as he latched onto Lin's arm tightly. And Lin smiled warmly and stroked Xiaozhe's head. Don't worry, just watch me. He began to fly toward the heavenly void beast on his brick as he spoke. When they were close enough, he activated all of his vital energy and said in a clear voice, Mr. Whale, since you've already let us out, why don't you make way for us? The heavenly void beast turned its gaze toward Lin again, and its golden eyes exuded boundless light and heat. It was as if it were looking down on all living beings. And Lin felt as if he were being stared down by two suns as a terrifying pressure swept toward him. His expression remained unchanged, and a golden light flashed through his eyes as he activated his divine might technique. An even more domineering aura erupted forth, and he was like a war god looking down upon the heavens with pride. That's right, and Lin's aura was even more domineering. The heavenly void beast was quite perplexed. It was already displeased within Lin and the others. Now, the mighty heavenly void beast was being called a whale by humans? This was utter humiliation. Mr. Whale, hurry up! And Lin urged with a smile. The heavenly void beast looked at those squinty eyes. Even though its own eyes were extremely large, a chill ran down its spine as it looked at those seemingly harmless squinty eyes. This was the horror of having its heavenly void soul engulfed. This was the horror of having its sexual function mysteriously taken away. How? The void beast forcefully interrupted its grand plan. It silently shifted its body, and like a continent moving to the side, it opened up a small path. And Lin and the others were ecstatic upon seeing this, and they immediately flew toward that small path. When they stepped out of the black line, a certain emotion slowly dissipated, and they felt a lot more refreshed. Phew, we're finally out. Xiao Zhe's face was filled with joy. We almost died to that heavenly void beast. Celestial Maiden, he glanced behind her with lingering fear in her eyes. The whale slowly shifted its body before crouching down again, completely blocking off the black line in the remorseless realm. Why does this big guy have to block our way here? Tina pouted with an angry expression. She had already recovered from her state of being beautiful and powerful, nothing else, and she glared at the heavenly void beast behind her with resentment in her eyes. Tobias didn't say anything. To him, crying and shouting Ruth to the stars was a black mark in his history. Heavenly void beasts love places with special laws of heaven and earth like this. Places like this are the best for them to refine their heavenly void body. Furthermore, half of their bodies are outside of the laws of heaven and earth, while the other half is within the laws of heaven and earth. That's the best way for them to observe the mysteries of the laws of heaven and earth. Xiao Zhe pointed at the heavenly void beast's tail with a smile. Everyone came to a sudden realization as they looked at the tail outside of the black line. So this heavenly void beast wanted to cultivate here. Howl! 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 Right at this moment, the huge whale's body suddenly trembled, as if it was trying to suppress something, and Lin and the others were just about to leave, but their interest was piqued at the sight of its trembling body. They and the whale were once sworn enemies, so it was only natural for them to stay and observe the whale's reaction. Even though the whale wasn't trembling very much, its body was the size of a continent, so the trembling was extremely devastating. At the very least, heaven and earth were about to shatter. Giant and Lin, this big guy seems to be in a lot of pain? Tina asked in a quiet voice. Xue Zhantian's eyes lit up, and he flapped his little wings as he analyzed with a serious expression. From sobbing and complaining to screaming at the top of its lungs. Could it be that this heavenly void beast is giving birth? Buffed! Everyone burst into laughter upon hearing Xue Zhantian's words. However, they didn't laugh for long before their laughter died down. The gigantic whale's tail suddenly swept up gale-force winds in a radius of over 50 kilometers. A crack then opened up on its body, from which blood gushed forth, along with a black and swarthy creature. Everyone stared at the creature with astonishment etched on their faces, and all of them drew sharp intakes of breath. Xue Zhantian was also dumbstruck as he murmured to himself, "You're slandering me. Looks like I was right. This is what childbirth is." Chapter 5, 75. And Lin and the others were all dumbstruck by the scenes unfolding before their eyes. No one had ever witnessed a heavenly void beast giving birth before. In fact, they had never even heard of how heavenly void beasts gave birth. Even the knowledgeable Xiao Zhe was no exception. Wah! The large heavenly void beast let loose a cry of release after experiencing pain. As for the newborn heavenly void beast, that's right, it was an inky black, whale-like little heavenly void beast that was only a few kilometers in size. But its aura was terrifyingly powerful as soon as it was born. It was most likely as powerful as Tina, and its aura was completely different from that of a newborn life form. Returning to void stage at birth. As expected of a heavenly void beast that can grasp the power of spatial energy from birth. It's born with a head start. Xiao Zhe shook his head and sighed with emotion. Xue Zhantian was extremely frustrated for the first time, and tears streamed down his face. This isn't even about having a head start. I still haven't even climbed to the head start of anyone else. I've been utterly defeated. Everyone sighed with emotion after witnessing the birth of a heavenly void beast. The little whale opened its bright eyes. Its eyes were blank, but they were also golden, creating a stark contrast with its inky black body. Wah! The large whale slowly floated in the air before turning around and looking at the little whale with a pair of eyes that were as bright as the sun. There was joy and affection in its eyes. "Mommy." The little whale looked up at the large whale as it spoke in a crisp voice. The large whale faltered upon hearing this, and Lin and the others were also taken aback. This was because the little whale was speaking the language of the Taichu realm, which was the language of the world that Lin and the others were from. How strange! Weren't whales supposed to make wah sounds? Why was it speaking the Taichu realm? Who taught it that? Before everyone had a chance to recover from their shock, the little whale flew toward the large whale before rubbing its head against the tip of the large whale's nose in an affectionate manner. The large whale's shock was quickly alleviated by this heartwarming scene, and it began to bask in the feeling. After a while, the little whale suddenly turned around to look at Lin and the others. In that instant, Lin and the others all tensed up. Even though this little whale had only just been born, its powers were not to be underestimated. The little whale turned its attention to Lin's face, and its eyes were glowing with excitement as it exclaimed in an elated voice, "Daddy!" The scene instantly fell silent. Everyone present, including the giant whale, stared at the little whale with dumbstruck expressions. "Daddy, Daddy." The little whale wriggled its body through the air and quickly drew closer to Enlin before rubbing its soft nose against Enlin's body. From Enlin's point of view, it was a pitch-black stone pillar that was constantly ramming into his body. "Daddy!" The little whale yelled excitedly. All right, it looked like the little whale was right. Enlin really was its daddy, and Lin's mind went blank. This absurd and inconceivable scene made him feel like he was dreaming. As for Cassidy, Xiaozhe, Celestial Maiden, and the others, they were completely dumbstruck. As expected of my master, even such a huge, heavenly void beast was subdued by you. Xiaozhe drew a sharp intake of breath as he looked at Enlin with reverence in his eyes. Who would have thought that Enlin's baby would be so much bigger than Enlin's? Tina's eyes were filled with shock and awe. The holy leader wouldn't even let a whale off the hook. Merlin exclaimed with excitement on his face. Chang, he put his palms together and bowed slightly. Amit Ba, congratulations to Benefactor Enlin for having a son. Celestial Maiden, he and the others all came to their senses and congratulated Enlin. Enlin's expression was one of complete despair, and his body was still being rammed by the tip of the little whale's nose. This was an absurd and indescribable emotion. The little whale had been calling him daddy ever since it was born. How did he become a father? Even a normal person would know that this was impossible. The whale was so huge, so how could he impregnate it? Even if he could, was his taste that bad? Wah, and Lin, what did you do? An extremely enraged intent suddenly swept through heaven and earth, and the large whale was suddenly unable to maintain its calm. The words it transmitted through its intent struck a sharp pain into everyone's consciousness. Everyone shuddered as they came to their senses and pulled out their weapons before positioning themselves around Enlin. The heavenly void beast doesn't seem to be in a good state. Could it be that you really didn't do anything to it, Master? Xiaozhe turned to Enlin with a serious expression. Enlin's vision darkened, and he felt as if he were about to throw up a mouthful of blood as he flared up with rage. Of course. What the F***CK could I do to it? Mommy, don't hurt my daddy. A crisp voice sounded, and the little whale turned around to shield Enlin behind it with a determined expression. The large whale stared at the little whale with a dumbstruck expression. Everyone stared at Enlin with dumbstruck expressions as if to say, "Is the little whale really not your child?" Enlin, I'm not your daddy. Enlin spoke with difficulty. The little whale didn't say anything. Just when everyone thought that it had fallen into a daze, 2 streams of tears flowed down the little whale's cheeks before falling to the ground to form 2 small streams. Xue Zhantian murmured to himself, "Is this what it means to reverse the flow of grief?" Cassidy and Celestial Maiden, he raised their eyebrows slightly as they glowered at Enlin with a hint of rage, as if to say, "Heartless jerk! Scumbag!" Enlin's eyes widened and his mouth gaped open, but he didn't know what to say. The large whale's heart was about to shatter at the sight of the little whale's tears, and unprecedented killing intent erupted from its eyes as it stared at Enlin. "I am a void creature with a hermaphrodite body. How dare you trick my child into calling you father? You are seeking death." A strong and murderous intent swept towards the crowd. Enlin heaved a sigh of relief upon hearing this. As expected, it wasn't his fault. Otherwise, he would have a hard time explaining himself to Xiaolan. Being a daddy? No way. Hermaphrodite? Everyone faltered slightly upon hearing the large whale's words before a hint of disappointment appeared on their faces. They had thought that they would be able to witness a monumental event. Who would have thought that this was all a misunderstanding? Then, why was the little whale referring to Enlin as daddy? Nonsense, Mommy. Daddy, and you gave birth to me together. The little whale spoke with a serious expression, but tears of indignation poured out of its eyes like a broken dam. Celestial Maiden, he murmured, Poor little whale. Daddy doesn't approve of it, and Mommy doesn't approve of Daddy either. Just how much trauma would a family conflict like this inflict on a child's heart? And Lin clasped a hand over his chest as he roared internally, "Big sister, don't get too carried away, all right?" The little whale's body shuddered violently as two balls of aura appeared before it. One of them was a ball of black chaos, which was vast and bottomless, while the other was a ball of red light. Even though it was smaller, it was completely different from the black chaos. Everyone sensed the familiar aura, and their eyes slowly widened as they turned toward Lin again. And Lin's heart skipped a beat, and he stood rooted to the spot like a statue. This aura was very familiar because the red light emanating from the little whale's body. This was an aura that belonged to him. A thought suddenly surfaced in his mind, and he connected all of the dots. And Lin's body swayed, slightly as if he were about to lose his balance. He knew that perhaps that little whale really was his child. Chapter 576. The large whale was also dumbstruck, and its massive body, which was the size of a small continent, was rooted to the spot. It was a hermaphrodite, so the aura released by its offspring should only be its aura. But where did that completely different aura come from? The large whale felt like it was about to explode, and Lin swallowed nervously. He already knew what was going on. All of this had to be explained from the moment he had unleashed the divine plunder technique. At the time, he had plundered a heavenly void beast power known as the heavenly void fertility. The heavenly void fertility absorbed boundless energy from the void to form a core of life, which could then be used to successfully reproduce the offspring of the heavenly void beast. At the time, he didn't really care about the effects of that power. After all, it only lasted for 10 minutes. Not only that, but he had also used that power on his own, causing his stomach to bulge and then explode then. Where did the power of the void that he had absorbed into his body, which was centered around him, go? The only explanation now was that the spatial energy that belonged to him didn't disappear following the explosion of his stomach. Instead, it had fused into the heavenly void beast's core of life. My God! And Lin was on the verge of tears upon hearing this. So this little whale really did have something to do with him. Even though the proportion of his aura was very small, it was undeniable that a portion of his power did exist within the little whale's body. The evidence is conclusive. Cassidy looked at Lin with a complex expression. No wonder you can speak the Tai Chu language. So you've inherited it from fellow Taoist Lin. The Night Patrol god nodded with an enlightened expression. Celestial maiden, his brows furrowed slightly as she said in a cold voice, "Fellow Taoist Lin, I'm going to look down on you if you abandon the whale. Amitabha, benefactor Lin, you should take responsibility until the very end." Chang, he sighed with emotion, and Lin clasped a hand over his chest as 10,000 alpacas stampeded over his heart. Conclusive evidence, inheritance, abandon the whale, take responsibility until the very end? Why didn't you just tell me to die? And Lin was dazed and confused. Why was it like this? Why was it like this? Unforgivable. How dare you do this? Absolutely unforgivable. The voice of the giant whale echoed in everyone's mind, causing their hearts to skip a beat. The giant whale suddenly opened its mouth, and boundless darkness formed a gargantuan vortex. The vortex was like a boundless wall of death between heaven and earth, and it was imbued with the power to engulf all things. An extremely fearsome suction force erupted from it. The air surged violently and the void began to twist. Everything in the world was funneled into the mouth of the heavenly void beast. This scene was too familiar. That was the void beast's move. Void devour and spirit shifting realm. Everyone paled when they saw this. Xiaoza immediately released the black dragon image to protect everyone. In the next second, a mysterious void force enveloped everyone, causing them to disappear from where they were. And Lin and the others appeared on a gray continent again. Boundless spatial compression force swept toward them, but it was all kept at bay by Xiaoza's defenses. Are we destined to be in this place? It's only been less than 2 hours, and we're already back here. And Lin slapped his own head with a resigned expression. Everyone turned to Lin with resentment on their faces, as if to say, "It's all because of you." However, what was different from last time was that there was an inky black little whale accompanying them this time. The little whale hovered outside of Xiaoza's protective spell technique and looked around with confusion in its eyes. Huh, what is this place? It seemed to be completely unaffected by the spatial compression force, and it wagged its tail in midair with a content expression. It turned toward Lin with a curious expression, and its golden eyes were glowing as it asked, "Daddy, where's Mommy?" And Lin massaged his brows. "Please don't call me Daddy," the little whale pouted and didn't say anything, but tears began to flow from its eyes again. Everyone felt like they had gone too far, and they were just about to criticize the little whale when Lin spoke again. "You should just call me Grandpa," he said. The little whale blinked in confusion. "Grandpa. Hey, good boy." And Lin replied with a benevolent expression. Everyone, boom. At this moment, an extremely terrifying burst of spatial power swept toward them. Xiaoza's expression shifted, and he immediately increased his defensive spell technique as he spoke in a panicked voice. "Master, please don't enrage that heavenly void beast. Otherwise, I won't be able to hold on for much longer." And Lin gritted his teeth as he looked up into the sky. "Mr. Whale, this is purely a coincidence. Why are you doing this? Are you really going to turn against me?" The projection of a gargantuan head began to appear, and its intent was imbued with an undisguisable sense of rage as it transmitted itself into everyone's mind. "Purely a coincidence. Not only did you steal my heavenly void spirit, but you're also trying to steal my child. I'm a hermaphrodite, yet you've made me a cuckold. I'm going to kill you this time." For some reason, everyone really did feel a sense of sympathy for the big whale upon hearing this, and Lin's face convulsed slightly, but he still insisted, "Aren't you afraid that I'm going to steal your power?" "Humph, I won't let you off even if I die this time." The big whale's determined yet violent voice sounded, and Lin heaved a heavy sigh upon hearing this. "So be it. I don't want to hurt the little whale's mother." The big whale's expression faltered upon hearing this, and the little whale shuddered before tears began to flow down its face again. "Wah! Mommy, please don't hurt Grandpa. I won't let you hurt him." The little whale sobbed as its body trembled. A faint black light erupted from its inky black body, which was imbued with extremely powerful spatial power, instantly enshrouding everyone on the continent. Xiaoza turned to the little whale with a surprised expression. "The spatial compression has become a lot weaker. Thank you, little whale." And Lin smiled. The little whale waved its tail with an earnest expression. "It's all right, Grandpa. I won't let Mommy hurt you." What a considerate child. Everyone sighed with emotion. Everyone was ecstatic, but the big whale looked as if it had just swallowed a fly. This was clearly its child, but it was siding with outsiders against it. If it weren't for the fact that realm displacement was an area spell technique that couldn't exclude certain living beings, it definitely wouldn't have allowed its child to appear here. It was planning to use the world within its body to wear down Lin and the others before releasing its child. Who would have thought that its child would be protecting those people? "Little Xiao, how long can you last in this situation?" And Lin transmitted his voice to Xiaoza. "With the little whale's help, I can last as long as I want," Xiaoza replied. And Lin heaved a sigh of relief as he looked at the little whale. How was he supposed to get out of here now? Chapter 577. And Lin looked at the little whale before him, and he couldn't help but ask, "Little whale, how long can you last to help us like this?" The little whale shook its head with an honest expression. "I don't know, but I'll do my best." The large whale's mental projection was quite disheartened upon hearing this, but the powerful spatial compression power was still being maintained. The little whale wouldn't be affected by this power anyway, and it would at most collapse to the ground from exhaustion. The spatial compression power was unable to harm the little whale, so all it had to do was crush Lin and the others into dust before releasing the little whale. A sneer appeared on the large whale's face with this in mind. "Humph. Do you think I'll spare you just because you don't plunder my power and express your goodwill? Dream on. The little heavenly void beast only has one family member in this world." The spatial compression power didn't stop there, and it continued to sweep toward Lin and the others in a frenzy. And Lin couldn't do anything about the large whale's resolute attitude. The large whale's mental projection slowly disappeared. Those people were going to die anyway, so there wasn't much to see. "Holy leader, what do we do now?" Cassidy couldn't help but ask. "How about you use that ability that can plunder the whale's power again? If worse comes to worst, we'll just fight to the death." Tobias was a lot more determined this time. "Don't hurt my mommy." The little whale immediately turned with tears in its eyes, and an aggrieved and pained expression appeared on its face. Everyone was speechless upon seeing this. They knew that just because the little whale was helping Lin didn't mean that it didn't care about the life and death of the large whale. It just couldn't stand domestic violence, and Lin felt like if there was a way, he wouldn't mind being a little violent. After all, it was only right for a father to teach his unfilial daughter a lesson. However, he wasn't going to use the divine plunder technique unless absolutely necessary. If he did that, then there would be no turning back between him and the large whale. Perhaps even the little whale wouldn't help them anymore. Was there really no other way? And Lin's brows furrowed in contemplation before a thought suddenly occurred to him, and he transmitted his voice to everyone. "Will our spatial teleportation talismans work in the heavenly void beast's body?" When the others heard Lin's words, they immediately came back to their senses. Many of them revealed joyful expressions as they understood Lin's intentions. Celestial Maiden, he transmitted her voice over with a smile. "The spatial teleportation talisman can even travel between the two realms of the continent, so it shouldn't be a problem for it to cross over to the small world within the void beast's body. I was so anxious before, but I didn't think that we didn't have to rely on our own power to escape." That's right. And Lin's plan was to wait until the exploration of the ancient Taichu realm was over before teleporting back to the Celestial Court using the teleportation talisman that Emperor Ziwei had given him. In that case, all we have to do is wait. There's still 4 to 5 days left. I wonder if the little whale will be able to last that long. Cassidy turned toward the gargantuan body with a concerned expression. "Let's wait until it can't hold on any longer. At that time, I can give you at least 6 hours of buffer time." Xiaoza tilted his head and smiled, and Lin heaved a sigh of relief when he heard this. It was always good to have hope of escaping. Now, all he had to do was wait for his safe return to the Celestial Court. Wait, a thought suddenly occurred to Lin. What would happen to his D*CK if he returned to the Celestial Court? When he thought of this, he couldn't help but suck in a cold breath. His mission required him to absorb 100 golden realm essence crystals in order to attain initial success in his divine body. If he failed, he would have to become a eunuch for 10,000 years. There were 82 golden realm essence crystals in his storage ring, which meant that he had to find 18 more golden realm essence crystals in order to overcome this eunuch crisis. And Lin turned toward Celestial Maiden He and the others, and his eyes lit up with excitement. Celestial Maiden, he blushed slightly at the sight of Lin's scorching gaze. "Mr. Lin, why are you staring at me like that? Do you have any golden realm essence crystals? I'm in urgent need of golden realm essence crystals. I can use other realm essence crystals to exchange for them." And Lin didn't hide anything and cut straight to the chase. Chang, he put his palms together. "Amitabha, benefactor Lin, since you want golden realm essence crystals, I'll give them to you as repayment for saving my life." Celestial Maiden He, the night patrol god, and Changzong also nodded in agreement. They felt that giving the realm essence crystals to Lin wasn't a problem, and Lin immediately waved his hands in refusal and insisted on exchanging realm essence crystals of equal value. Even though Lin had saved their lives once, it was still far too rude of him to accept their hard-earned realm essence crystals. Furthermore, he had caused everyone to fall into the whale's small world again because of the incident with the little whale. He couldn't bring himself to do such a thing. Celestial Maiden, he, and the others could only agree to exchange realm essence crystals of equal value after seeing Lin's insistence. One red realm essence crystal was equivalent to 200,000 spirit stones, which meant that 5 red realm essence crystals were equivalent to 1 golden realm essence crystal. This ratio was about the same among all the powers. Celestial Maiden, he had 2 golden realm essence crystals. The Night Patrol God had 3, and Changhe and Changzong also had 3. Thus, they had a total of 11 golden realm essence crystals. And Lin only had 49 red realm essence crystals, so he added 12 blue realm essence crystals to his storage ring before putting the 4 golden realm essence crystals into it. He could be considered a super tycoon in terms of realm essence crystals now. He had 344 white realm essence crystals, 60 green realm essence crystals, 72 blue realm essence crystals, and 93 golden realm essence crystals. This number would definitely shock a lot of people. I still need 7 more realm essence crystals. He sighed. He had finally experienced the pain of having money, but no supply. What was the point of having so much money? There were no golden realm essence crystals for him to buy. Celestial Maiden, he, and the others all offered words of consolation upon seeing Lin's dejected expression. It looks like the holy leader's small goal will be difficult to achieve. Cassidy was also a little dejected. What small goal? Celestial Maiden, his clear eyes flickered with curiosity. Merlin replied, "It's that small goal of collecting 100 golden realm essence crystals, right? If I remember correctly, you're still missing 7? Boom! Celestial Maiden, he, and the others were thunderstruck by his words. A small goal of collecting 100 golden realm essence crystals? You're still missing 7? Doesn't that mean you've already collected 93? The mighty figures of the Celestial Court and Buddhist Kingdom all drew a sharp intake of breath as they turned to look at Lin again. They discovered that Lin was still dejected. When they thought back to how they had comforted Lin, their hearts constricted, and they almost suffocated to death. They felt as if they were ragged beggars who had discovered that a big shot had only earned a little over 90 million realm essence crystals and had failed to achieve their small goal of earning 100 million realm essence crystals. F***CK. Comfort my A** guess. Celestial Maiden, he, and the others almost flipped the table. The 2 monks were fine. They only needed to chant some Buddhist scriptures to calm themselves down. The Night Patrol God's entire body was enshrouded in a black mist, so it wasn't easy to see through him. However, Celestial Maiden, he was in a miserable state. Her beautiful face was flushed red, and she turned her face away in embarrassment and anger. And Lin was still in a daze, but who the F***CK was going to comfort him? Only Lin knew that his life as a eunuch for 10,000 years was still hanging in the balance. Time passed by slowly. Thankfully, the little whale was tough enough and didn't show any signs of fatigue even after 3 days. It even tried to persuade its mother to stop, but the big whale was determined and didn't respond. Finally, the final day arrived. Chapter 578. On the final day, everyone saw a glimmer of hope. The focus of their discussion shifted to the arrangements they would make after they got out of this place. Xiao Zhe was naturally going to follow Lin, and Tina and Shui Zhantian were also going to stay by Lin's side as beast pets. Right now, the main topic of discussion was the 3 blood tribe mighty figures. After all, it was unheard of for 3 supreme beings of the blood tribe to become the servants of a human. It was their first time witnessing such a thing. In the entire kingdom of the 9 states, and Lin was probably the only one who could do this. Cassidy and the others were now faced with 2 good choices. The first choice was to stay with Lin as his servants, or the second choice was to return to the dark marshlands and continue to be high-ranking members of the Blood Tribe. If they stayed within Lin, they would have to face the hindrance of the Celestial Court. No one was brave enough to allow an enemy mighty figure to stay with them. Hence, if they wanted to stay within Lin, they would have to get past the Celestial Court first. The second choice was to return to their own forces. Cassidy and the others actually already had very high statuses in the Dark Marshlands, so they would definitely be able to play a very important role if they could become a secret ally of the Celestial Court. Cassidy and the others were more inclined to the first choice, which was to get close to Enlin. Only by staying with Enlin would they be able to drink holy blood. The pavilion closest to the water enjoys moonlight first. They understood the principle of being in a favorable position. However, Enlin wanted them to make the second choice. At the very least, they could go to the Blood Tribe and do something big with the Celestial Court before returning to the Celestial Court to express their loyalty. That way, the Celestial Court would be able to accept them more easily. That would be killing two birds with one stone. In the end, after some discussion, they decided to have Cassidy and the others stay with the Blood Tribe for a year or two. If they discovered that something was amiss, they would immediately return to the Kingdom of the 9 States. And Lin still had to go to the Dark Marshlands for his end-of-semester exams, so it was always a good idea to have a few mighty figures to look after him. As for the specific arrangements, he would have to ask Emperor Ziwei or even the Celestial Darch. And Lin still wanted to continue his studies in the Celestial Court. This problem was unavoidable, so he could only deal with it this way. Celestial Maiden, he had also mentioned that it was not the first time that mighty figures from opposing forces had joined the Celestial Court. There were returned to Void Stage mighty figures from the western Heavenly Dragon Forest and the sinister Spirit Beast Cesspool, who had pledged their loyalty to the Celestial Court. On the other hand, Cassidy, who was directly a human servant, was restricted by the bloodline contract, so it was actually easier for her to obtain the approval of the Celestial Court. And Lin's teleportation talisman was golden, so he could teleport back anytime, anywhere. However, he still chose to teleport back with the others. After all, he had to make sure that his companions were safe before leaving. Time passed by slowly, and the little whale was still tirelessly defending Enlin and the others from the spatial power. Holy Leader, we're going to be going our separate ways soon. Aren't you going to give us anything? Cassidy asked with a scorching light in her eyes. Tobias and Merlin also nodded in agreement as they looked at Enlin with anticipation in their eyes. Enlin paused momentarily before giving them 6 milliliters of blood, 2 milliliters each, as a farewell gift. Take care of yourselves. Contact me as soon as you discover that something is amiss, Enlin said with a solemn expression. The 3 Blood Tribe mighty figures accepted the blood with contentment on their faces. Don't worry, Holy Leader. Please don't turn your back on us when the time comes, Cassidy said with a dainty smile, and Lin shook his head with a smile. You're already connected to me, so you can be considered half a family to me. How could I turn my back on you? Following the Holy Leader is the best choice we've made. We'll definitely be able to break through the shackles of our current lives and ascend to a higher level. Merlin licked a small drop of blood as his body trembled with elation. That's right. We're willing to die for the Holy Leader. Tobias replied with an excited expression. Celestial Maiden he and the others paced back and forth between the Blood Tribe and Enlin with astonishment on their faces. They clearly didn't expect the Blood Tribe to be so loyal to Enlin. Before they knew it, everyone's teleportation talismans began to flash with a dazzling light. Finally, it was time to leave, and Lin held Shui Zhantian in his arms as he held onto Xiaozi's left hand. Tina sat on Enlin's shoulder as she gripped tightly onto Enlin's hair. Who would have thought that we would return under such circumstances? Celestial Maiden, he sighed with emotion. I didn't expect this either. And Lin's brows furrowed as he heaved a faint sigh. He still hadn't completed his mission, so he had to hurry up. Even though there was still a year to complete his mission, who knew where the Golden Realm Essence crystals would go after he handed them over? What if he ran out of realm essence crystals? Amit Ba, everything in this world has its own laws of fate. It's not necessarily a bad thing to return like this. Chang, he put his palms together with a calm expression on his face, and Lin couldn't help but agree with Chang He's words upon hearing this, especially the words, "we've obtained." During this trip to the ancient Tai Chu realm, he had obtained many precious things, many of which couldn't even be measured in terms of wealth. For example, Cassidy and the others, Shui Zhantian and Tina, and his disciple Xiaoza. I wonder if that little whale counts as a reward. And Lin pondered for a moment before deciding to bid farewell to the little whale. "Little whale!" he yelled in a loud voice. The little whale was focused on resisting the power of spatial compression, and it turned around upon hearing and Lin's call. "What is it, Grandpa?" it asked with a curious expression. "Little whale, I'm going to leave this place soon. Live a good life with your mother." And Lin bade farewell to it with a serious expression. The little whale immediately panicked, and it waved its tail frantically. "Why? Where are you going, Grandpa? Don't leave the little whale. Even though Mommy is in the wrong, she'll definitely come to her senses after some time. She won't treat you like this anymore. Don't leave me, please." The little whale became more and more panicked as it spoke, and tears began to flow uncontrollably from its eyes. And Lin didn't know what to say, so he placed Shui Zhantian under his other arm and stroked the little whale's head with his right hand to find that it was smooth and smooth to the touch. The little whale didn't resist, and it only continued to cry. And Lin's emotions were a little conflicted. "I'm sorry I lied to you. I'm actually not your grandfather, nor am I your father. I just accidentally infused some of the spatial power I absorbed into your body, giving you a sense of intimacy. Your only true family is your mother, understand?" The little whale faltered slightly upon hearing this before violently shaking its head. "I don't care. I have your aura on me, so you're my family. Don't leave me." The little whale was extremely excited, as if it were a child throwing a tantrum. However, right at this moment, a brilliant light suddenly erupted, and everyone's bodies began to slowly disintegrate into specks of light before being enshrouded by an extremely powerful power, upon which they completely disappeared from this world. The little whale was rooted to the spot by Lin's sudden disappearance, and it stared at the empty continent as it murmured to itself, "Daddy, Daddy, where did you go?" The heavenly void beast detected the disturbance within its body, and it immediately projected its consciousness into its body, only to discover an empty continent as well as the little whale swimming by itself. "Where is he?" it asked with a confused expression. "Wah, Mommy, Daddy ran away. Daddy doesn't want us anymore, wah." The little whale began to bawl again. The large whale. Chapter 579. Within a certain secret chamber, there was a gate with a pair of glowing gates, glowing with a dazzling light. A series of tremors suddenly erupted from within the small golden gate. Immediately afterward, an extremely powerful spatial power erupted from within the small golden gate, imbued with an unparalleled suction force. In the end, 18 figures appeared outside the golden gate, all of whom were soul formation stage cultivators. Wang Xuanzhan's azure robe was stained with blood, and he looked around with a fearsome aura as if he was searching for someone. An expression of pain and regret then appeared on his face. "And Lin, you didn't come back?" 31 soul formation stage cultivators had entered the small golden gate, but only 18 of them had made it out alive. This trip to the ancient Tai Chu realm had been quite a tragic one. All of the cultivators were either in grief or shaking their heads as they heaved a forlorn sigh. The joy of their safe return had been diluted by those who couldn't make it back, and the atmosphere was a little heavy. Among the cultivators who had stayed behind in the ancient divine division were their friends and comrades who had fought alongside them. Now that none of them could make it back, everyone was feeling a little depressed. At this moment, a white film of light enshrouded all of the cultivators present as an extremely powerful healing power began to heal their injuries. Emperor Ziwei was in the middle of unleashing a healing spell technique on all of the cultivators, and they only came to their senses now before bowing toward Emperor Ziwei. Emperor Ziwei shook his head with a solemn expression. There's no need for such formalities. You've all worked hard on this trip. All of you are heroes of the Celestial Court. Right at this moment, the small golden gate began to slowly disappear. Everyone felt a sense of emptiness in their hearts. The passageway had been destroyed, which meant that all of the cultivators who didn't make it back would never make it back. The large golden door began to tremble. Then, a burly, 3-meter-tall man appeared outside the golden door. He held a giant crimson axe in his hand and exuded a vast and profound aura. It's the giant spirit god. Some of the soul formation stage cultivators spoke with elation on their faces. All of the return to void stage cultivators were among the most powerful cultivators in the Celestial Court, so they were all ecstatic to see a return to void stage cultivator return safely. Then a red-robed mighty figure with eyes as bright as the sun and a Sun Patrol immortal badge in his hand began to appear. Before anyone could say anything, another dazzling light appeared. Then a figure in white and a figure in pink appeared. Not only did the day cruising god return, even Lu Dongbin and Celestial Maiden, he returned safely. Some cultivators said happily. The cultivators were happy to hear this, but when the light faded and they saw the pink figure clearly, their smiles slowly froze and their mouths opened wide. Wang Xuanzhan stared at the woman in disbelief. Lu Chu, I am not dreaming, right? A beautiful woman in a pink dress stood in front of everyone with an adorable smile on her face, and there was a super adorable snow soul beast in her arms. That's right. I traveled to the Void Star section by chance, and it was all thanks to Senior Lu that I was able to return safely. Lu Chu looked up at the man beside her with a grateful expression as she spoke. Lu Dongbin shook his head with a smile, indicating that there was no need to be so polite. He then turned his gaze toward the golden gate of light again, as if he were waiting for someone to return. Emperor Ziwei was also quite surprised by Lu Chu's appearance, and his gaze toward the golden gate became even more expectant. Right at this moment, another burst of light flashed, and Celestial Maiden, he and the night cruising god appeared outside the golden gate. This is great. All the return to void stage mighty figures of our Celestial Court have returned safely. Some of the cultivators couldn't help but cheer. The Void Star section was far more perilous than the ancient Divine Division, and even returned to Void Stage, cultivators faced the threat of death there. It was indeed a cause for celebration that all 5 of them had returned unscathed. However, just when everyone thought that Emperor Ziwei was going to teleport them away from this place, they discovered that he didn't react at all. Instead, he was still staring at the Golden Gate. Lu Chu, Lu Dongbin, Celestial Maiden He, and the Night Cruising God also turned their eyes toward the Golden Gate. Everyone else was extremely perplexed upon seeing their expressions, and someone couldn't help but ask, "What's going on? Are you waiting for someone?" "We're waiting for our Savior." A smile appeared on Celestial Maiden He's face, and there was an undeniable determination on her face. All the other cultivators were astonished upon hearing this. There really was someone else who had come out from the Golden Gate? Weren't all the return to Void Stage mighty figures of the Celestial Court here? Who could be Celestial Maiden, He's Savior? Who had the ability to do so? Wang Xuanzhan suddenly thought of a person, and his heart stirred as he also looked up at the Golden Gate with a tense expression. A dazzling golden light erupted from the Golden Gate, and a terrifying aura swept forth, causing the entire space to tremor slightly. Even the Golden Gate that connected the 2 worlds began to crack open. Everyone was astonished once again, and they all turned toward the Golden Gate with shock and horror. Emperor Ziwei's brows furrowed as he pointed a finger toward the Golden Gate, and an extremely vast power surged forth from his fingertip to maintain the stability of the Golden Gate. Right at this moment, two figures began to appear. The man was dressed in a flowing white robe, and he was holding onto the hand of a young boy in his right hand. In his left hand was a super adorable snow soul beast, and on his shoulder was an extremely flawless fairy. All the other cultivators' eyes widened, and their minds instantly went blank. What kind of F** king combination was this? Did the Celestial Court even have people like this? No, one of them was extremely familiar. At this moment, even Emperor Ziwei's eyelids twitched in disbelief. He could understand why Enlin had appeared, and he could accept the snow soul beast as well. But who the hell was that little boy and that fairy? Huh, am I the last one? And Lin looked around to find that everyone was staring at him, and a blush appeared on his face as he joined his hands in salute. Sorry for making everyone wait. Welcome back, Lu Dongbin said with a smile. Lu Chuchu waved at Enlin with an adorable and mischievous smile. Wang Xuanzhan even made his way over to Enlin and slapped him on the shoulder with a smile on his face. So you also went to the Void Star section. I was sad for you for nothing. Enlin waved his hands with a hearty smile. It was just an accident. Emperor Ziwei looked at Enlin and the others, and countless stars flashed through his eyes. He closed his eyes for a moment, but he was unable to conceal the shock in his heart. Mr. Enlin, what is the background of this primordial dragon and fairy beside you? Emperor Ziwei asked. Xue Zhantian glared at Emperor Ziwei upon hearing this, as if he was displeased that Emperor Ziwei hadn't asked about his background. Was he looking down on his grandpa Zhantian? Oh, this Xiao Zhe is my disciple, and Tina the fairy is my beast pet. And Lin didn't try to hide the truth. They still had to live in the Celestial Court in the future, so it was a good idea to reveal these things as soon as possible. Emperor Ziwei's face convulsed slightly. You accepted a primordial dragon at the pinnacle of the return to Void Intermediate Stage as your disciple, and a true sage fairy as your beast pet? That's right. And Lin nodded with a calm expression. Gasp! Everyone's eyes widened in shock as they drew another sharp intake of breath. A soul formation stage, Cultivator, had accepted a disciple at the pinnacle of the return to Void Intermediate Stage. And that fairy clearly possessed power comparable to a return to Void Stage mighty figure, but she had become his beast pet. They felt like they were either dreaming, or the world had gone insane. If someone were to mention this to someone else, they would definitely be slapped across the face and yelled at with rage. Who the F***CK are you trying to fool? Was that something a soul formation stage, Cultivator, could do? It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was a Tao integration stage true god. Even Lu Dongbin and Lu Chuchu were dumbstruck. They had never seen Xiao Zhe before, and they didn't think that Enlin would be able to make a dragon tribe mighty figure at the pinnacle of the return to Void Intermediate Stage accept him as his master in such a short time. Wang Xuanzhan was rooted to the spot once again. He felt like his brain was about to explode after hearing the conversation between Emperor Ziwei and Enlin. Ha ha ha. Mr. Enlin sure is blessed. Not bad, not bad. Emperor Ziwei nodded with a smile on his face. Enlin was probably the only person in the entire Celestial Court who could receive such praise from Emperor Ziwei. Even though he already had a very high opinion of Enlin, he didn't think that Enlin would still be able to bring him such a pleasant surprise. However, he was a mighty figure who had lived for countless years, so he quickly calmed himself down. After the passageway between the two worlds disappeared, he waved a sleeve through the air, and the space around him warped as everyone was teleported to a spacious white palace. Emperor Ziwei's authoritative, yet soothing voice sounded. Now, let's begin the exchange of realm essence crystals. Chapter 580. Emperor Ziwei waved a hand, and an immortal tool that resembled a white wooden barrel appeared in front of everyone. The immortal tool had a diameter of 30 feet, and its surface was glowing with a faint golden light. The center of the immortal tool was pitch black, as if it were a gigantic, bottomless mouth. No one knew where it led to. I've already set up a spell formation on this glazed spatial wood. Place all of the realm essence crystals you've obtained into the black hole, and the glazed spatial wood will pay you the corresponding amount of spirit stones according to the price I mentioned earlier. White realm essence crystals are 10,000 spirit stones each. Green realm essence crystals are 30,000 spirit stones each. Blue realm essence crystals are 100,000 spirit stones each. Red realm essence crystals are 200,000 spirit stones each, and golden realm essence crystals are 1,000,000 spirit stones each. And Lin was already itching to make a move as soon as Emperor Ziwei finished speaking. He knew that this was his last chance. Emperor Ziwei swept his gaze over everyone before heaving a light sigh as his body began to dissipate. He still had to go to the Ziwei Pavilion to make arrangements for the deceased cultivators. He couldn't mistreat the brave cultivators who had sacrificed their lives for the celestial court. And Lin walked over to the glazed spatial wood and tossed out a white realm essence crystal. A white vital stone really did fly out of the black hole. One vital stone was equivalent to 10,000 spirit stones. He put away the vital stone with a hint of surprise on his face before looking around. Tina, Shuezhantian, and Xiaozhe were also standing in different locations, looking at everyone with scorching eyes. The rest of the cultivators didn't know what was going on, and they cast curious glances at them before deciding to toss realm essence crystals into the glazed spatial wood. One cultivator after another began to make their exchange. The soul formation stage cultivators mostly obtained white realm essence crystals and green realm essence crystals. Blue and red realm essence crystals were extremely rare, and golden realm essence crystals were nowhere to be found. On average, each soul formation stage cultivator only obtained a few 100,000 spirit stones. Occasionally, there would be 1 or 2 lucky cultivators who could obtain over 1,000,000 spirit stones. At this moment, Lu Chuchu's appearance became the center of attention. She waved her hand, and dazzling white, green, blue, and red realm essence crystals appeared. There was even a golden realm essence crystal, and it drew cries of surprise from the surrounding cultivators. And Lin did some calculations and discovered that the total value of her crystal sources had already reached 3,100,000 spirit stones. It was no wonder that she was the person who had obtained the most out of all the crystal sources. Lu Chuchu tossed in one crystal essence crystal after another with a smile on her face. Then she put away the vital stones one by one, and everyone was completely mesmerized by her actions. She even had a legendary beast pet helping her, so she truly deserved to be called a winner in life. Just as she tossed the golden realm essence crystals into the glazed spatial wood, a fairy hugged the golden realm essence crystal tightly before flying over to Enlin and handing it over to him. When everyone saw this scene, they were a little confused. What were they doing? Lu Chuchu was also a little dumbstruck as she blinked her eyes. "You're not trying to rob me in broad daylight, right in front of everyone's eyes." Shuezhantian raised his wings. "Well said, Lu Chuchu." And Lin immediately put on an apologetic smile. "I'm in urgent need of golden realm essence crystals. You know what my target is, right? I'll give you 11 blue realm essence crystals for them." 11 blue realm essence crystals were equivalent to 1,100,000 spirit stones, which was 10% more than what Emperor Ziwei was offering. He was sure that Lu Chuchu wouldn't reject this offer. Lu Chuchu pursed her lips in resignation. "Seeing as we're comrades, I'll only ask for 10 blue realm essence crystals." And Lin immediately agreed and brought out 10 blue realm essence crystals from his storage ring before handing them over to Lu Chuchu. Lu Chuchu rolled her eyes before exchanging them for money. Then she made her way over to Enlin with a curious expression. "How much of your target are you now?" "Thanks to your help, I'm only 6 away." And Lin replied gratefully. Lu Chuchu's body swayed slightly as she clasped a hand over her chest. She took a deep breath before silently walking away. The happiness of a winner in life always left as quickly as it came. All of the cultivators who were preparing to exchange their realm essence crystals for spirit stones heard the conversation between Enlin and Lu Chuchu. 1 golden realm essence crystal could be exchanged for 11 blue realm essence crystals? Are you for real? The few cultivators who had golden realm essence crystals were starting to get restless. Soon, 2 cultivators walked toward Enlin. Enlin generously brought out 22 blue realm essence crystals. The exchange was successful, and 2 golden realm essence crystals were obtained. Enlin and the others stood guard beside the glazed space wood to ensure that they wouldn't miss out on any golden realm essence crystals. After that, another cultivator made his way over to the glazed space wood and chose to exchange for golden realm essence crystals with Enlin. After a while, all of the soul formation stage cultivators had exchanged their realm essence crystals, and not a single golden realm essence crystal appeared. Enlin's heart leaped into his throat again. Only 3 more realm essence crystals had to be enough. Celestial Maiden, he, and the Night Patrol God began to exchange their realm essence crystals. They had already exchanged with Enlin, so they were clearly out of realm essence crystals. Even Lu Dongbin had run out of golden realm essence crystals. The Day Patrol God slowly made his way over to the glazed space wood. He opened his hand, and over 300 white realm essence crystals and a few dozen green realm essence crystals appeared around him. And Lin glanced at them. Wow, this is a realm essence crystal tycoon. He was instantly filled with anticipation. However, the Day Patrol God silently left after exchanging a few hundred vital stones. And Lin, right at this moment, the mighty miracle God walked over with a smile on his face. Mr. Lin, I heard that you want golden realm essence crystals? And Lin's eyes lit up upon hearing this, and he hurriedly nodded. That's right. How many do you have? The mighty miracle God extended 2 fingers. I have 2. How about it? Do you have enough realm essence crystals to exchange for them? And Lin's heart instantly sank, and he nodded dejectedly. Enough, my asterisk S. I'm still short of 1 golden realm essence crystal. And Lin accepted the mighty miracle God's golden realm essence crystals, and there were 99 golden realm essence crystals in his storage ring. He was the only one left who hadn't exchanged his realm essence crystals yet. And Lin felt a chill run down his spine, and he forcibly held back his tears as he exchanged his realm essence crystals. There were 344 white realm essence crystals, 60 green realm essence crystals, and 7 blue realm essence crystals. His realm essence crystals instantly shone brightly, attracting countless envious gazes. Mr. and Lin also reaped a bountiful harvest from this trip. That's right. The value of these realm essence crystals is comparable to that of a return to Void Stage Celestial Immortal. Comparable? Have you forgotten that he exchanged his golden realm essence crystals with someone else? I was wrong. He is the true winner in life. And Lin stowed the 594 vital stones into his storage ring. The total number of spirit stones in his storage ring had reached an astonishing 31,820,000. He was truly a tycoon in the cultivation world. However, so what if he had more money? Could he buy a dick? He looked up into the sky, and tears flowed lightly from his eyes. This scene was seen by many people, and all of them were slightly surprised. Why is Mr. and Lin crying? Is he crying because he has too much money? I think it's because he's thinking about his fallen comrade, and he's touched by the memory. He looks so sad. Should we go and comfort him? Celestial Maiden, he and the others felt their hearts clench upon hearing this, as if they had been reminded of some unpleasant memories. If they went and comforted Enlin now, he would definitely be moved to tears after learning the truth. Not long after, Emperor Ziwei's figure appeared in the palace again. Looks like everyone has exchanged their realm essence crystals. There was a faint smile on his face as he began to touch the glazed spatial wood. What a bountiful harvest! I feel like this is the best harvest I've had in the last 10,000 years. Emperor Ziwei nodded as he felt the glazed spatial wood, and his expression faltered slightly. He seemed to be in disbelief and touched the glazed space wood again. In the end, he sucked in a breath of cold air and looked up at the group of cultivators in front of him. What's going on? Why aren't there any Golden Realm essence crystals? Chapter 581. Everyone turned to look at Enlin upon hearing Emperor Ziwei's question. A harmless smile appeared on Enlin's face. Emperor Ziwei, I purchased their Golden Realm essence crystals at a 10% premium to my own Realm essence crystals, so the price was absolutely fair and reasonable. I really do need these Golden Realm essence crystals urgently. Was he here to steal their business? Emperor Ziwei's face convulsed slightly. How urgently? So urgently that if I don't have any more Golden Realm essence crystals, I'll suffer for 10,000 years. And Lin replied with a solemn expression. That serious? Emperor Ziwei was a little surprised. It wasn't that he had to have Golden Realm essence crystals. It was just that the fact that he hadn't found a single Golden Realm essence crystal on this trip was far too bizarre, so he decided to ask everyone about it, and Lin nodded. It really is very serious. Furthermore, I'm still one Golden Realm essence crystal away from my goal. Do you have any? I can buy them back from you. I don't care how much it costs. Emperor Ziwei couldn't help but chuckle. That's enough. Not only can I not obtain any Golden Realm essence crystals, but you're also going to take one from me? Can you tell me how many Golden Realm essence crystals you're aiming to collect? 100, and Lin replied. PFFF. Emperor Ziwei couldn't maintain his usual cold expression any longer, and he burst into laughter. 100, which means you already have 99. All right, let me see. If you really have 99, I'll give you another Golden Realm essence crystal. He naturally didn't believe in Lin's words, so he replied in such a manner. 99 Golden Realm essence crystals? He dared to say such a large number. Who was he trying to fool? And Lin's eyes lit up. You're forcing me to flaunt my wealth. He had no choice but to hand over all 99 Golden Realm essence crystals. In that instant, an extremely dazzling golden light lit up the entire space. The special properties of high-grade Realm essence crystals caused the entire space within the palace to become extremely viscous. Aside from a vast expanse of golden light, there were no other colors. Countless cultivators felt as if their eyes were blinded by the light, as if they had been hit by a flash bomb. Emperor Ziwei's mouth gaped open in shock as he stared at the dense cluster of Golden Realm essence crystals in the air. Is this the amount of crystal sources that a single person can collect? This was the first time Emperor Ziwei had ever lost his composure like this. He stared blankly at the scenes unfolding before him. To put it bluntly, the total number of Golden Realm essence crystals that the other 15 major powers possessed probably couldn't even compare to what Enlin possessed. As for the rest of the cultivators, they were all dazzled and completely subdued by Enlin's crystal sources. Hiss! So dazzling! These are all F*King Golden Realm essence crystals? How much does it cost? In any case, it's not something we can imagine. My God! There's also a beautiful woman constructed from Golden Realm essence crystals. Poverty has limited my imagination. Fellow Taoist Enlin is so terrifying. Is there anyone in the celestial court who is more monstrous than him? And Lin suddenly offered a reminder as he listened to the discussions around him. That's right, that beautiful woman is constructed from 23 Golden Realm essence crystals. Can you count if there are 99 of them? He believed that Emperor Ziwei would definitely be able to determine the total number of Realm essence crystals here. Emperor Ziwei took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. He then pulled out a golden realm essence crystal from his storage ring with trembling hands before handing it over to Enlin. This was the sample crystal that he had displayed to all the cultivators before entering the ancient Tai Chu realm. Now it was finally going to leave him. He was going to fulfill the promise he had made, even with tears in his eyes. And Lin heaved a long sigh of relief as he accepted the golden realm essence crystal that Emperor Zue had gifted him. He could finally complete the mission that the system had issued. Furthermore, he had earned a golden realm essence crystal for free. After Enlin stowed the 100 golden realm essence crystals into his storage ring, everyone felt as if the sky had darkened. All of the cultivators, including Lu Chu Chu and the others, felt as if they were in a dream. It was as if everything before them was fake. Some of the cultivators even lowered their heads slightly, not daring to look directly at Enlin. Emperor Zue recovered from his shock and was extremely curious. What did Enlin want so many realm essence crystals for? Enlin, did you also complete that mission? Emperor Zue asked. I did, and Lin nodded with a smile. Emperor Zue smiled upon hearing this. Looks like I'll have to keep you here for a good chat. He was extremely curious about Enlin's experiences, and he couldn't help but want to learn more about them. This was exactly what Enlin wanted, and Lin immediately nodded in agreement. All right, I also have some things to discuss with you. Emperor Zue gave a brief briefing to the other cultivators before sending them to the Zue Pavilion to compile the information they'd gathered and report it to the Celestial Court. Soon, only Enlin, Xiao Zhe, Tina, Shuizhantian, and Emperor Zue were left in the palace. Emperor Zue waved a sleeve, and a tea table appeared between the two of them. Please take a seat, Mr. Enlin. Let's have a good chat, Emperor Zue said with a warm smile. And Lin nodded before handing a stardust fruit to Emperor Zue. Emperor Zue's expression remained unchanged as he accepted the stardust fruit. He didn't even look at it. Instead, he stared at Enlin and took a sip of tea. Tell me about what you encountered in the ancient Tai Chu realm. Get to the important points. Important points? And Lin thought for a moment before replying. I took in 3 blood tribe return to void stage mighty figures as servants. PFFF. Emperor Zue spat out a mouthful of tea before he even had a chance to wipe it away. He turned to look at Enlin with astonishment on his face, and Lin nodded with a serious expression. It's true. Emperor Zue took a deep breath before speaking with a serious expression. Tell me about it in detail. And Lin recounted how he had taken in 3 blood tribe mighty figures, and he attributed all of this to the blood in his body. He had chosen to tell the story as he had wanted to get a mighty figure to help him analyze his blood. After all, he was a little uneasy about his strange constitution, and he wanted to learn more about it. However, after Emperor Zue asked for a drop of Enlin's blood, he didn't see anything special about it. Cassidy, Merlin, and Tobias are all extremely renowned mighty figures in the blood tribe. If they can become spies for the Celestial Court, then they'll be extremely useful. I'll send people from the Celestial Court to contact them, so you don't have to worry about that. Emperor Zue clicked his tongue in wonder at Enlin's bizarre experience, and he urged him to tell him the rest of the story. Enlin told Emperor Zue about his encounter with Tina, his encounter with Shuizhantian, his encounter with the world collapsing, and his journey into the huge starry mountain. However, he hid the fact that Tina had obtained the fragment of the realm core. He only told him that she had unleashed a mysterious power to release the souls from the afterlife. Emperor Zue listened with great interest, and his expression was filled with astonishment and incredulity when he heard about his conflict with the large whale. Sigh, what an unresolved love story. Emperor Zue shook his head and sighed with emotion, and Lin's lips twitched slightly. Was this the time to be complaining about something like this? However, he really did miss the little whale. The little whale's good temper must have had something to do with him, right? He wondered if the little whale's mother would lead it astray. After that, his discussion with Emperor Zue revolved around the 3 blood tribe mighty figures, and they came up with a more reliable plan. In any case, the safety of the 3 blood tribe mighty figures was their top priority, so they could slowly enact a series of plans. After taking care of the matters in the ancient Taichu realm, Enlin flew toward Xiaoxian United University atop his brick with Xiao, Zhe, Tina, and Shuizhantian in tow. Chapter 582. Within a perpetually frozen castle in the holy glacial lands, a golden spatial gate slowly dissipated. The great empress and high priestess Meng, Ji, stood side by side with 3 returned to Void Stage Holy Palace leaders and 10 Soul Formation Stage Snow Maidens standing before them. There were 20 Soul Formation Stage Snow Maidens, but only half of them had returned alive. However, that wasn't what Meng Ji was most concerned about. We can't find the fragments of the realm core, and we don't even have enough realm essence crystals. Tell me why. Her pure golden eyes were imbued with a peerless might as she glared at the snow maidens before her. Her hand trembled as she gripped her divine staff, and it was clear that she was on the verge of exploding with rage. The return to Void Stage Palace leaders clearly bore the brunt of the responsibility. They had been given high hopes, but they had returned empty-handed and didn't even have a single Golden Realm Essence crystal. The return to Void Stage team leader, Rogu, bowed her head. During the battle against the Longshang in the Remorseless Realm, we were trapped by Enlin and his troops. They robbed us of all our storage rings, and they only let us go out of some sort of emotional compulsion. Huh? Your storage rings were also robbed by Enlin? Us too. Lu Wei raised her head with astonishment on her face. The team she represented was the team that Shangguan Yi was in, and it was also the team that had become completely destitute. A peculiar atmosphere permeated through the air among the snow maidens. Was this a coincidence? You were also robbed by Enlin. The Soul Formation Stage snow maidens were all astonished. They could understand why Lu Wei and the others had their treasure stolen. However, who would have thought that the 3 returned to Void Stage snow maidens would also be plundered by Enlin? This was quite unimaginable. Meng Ji's chest constricted as she recalled the face that had raised his middle finger at her upon hearing this name. The great empress heaved an almost imperceptible sigh. Enlin, it's him again. The black, floating continent was shrouded in a curtain of night. A bronze-skinned man with a massive saber on his back was recounting his experiences to the Darkwing Emperor and the other monarchs. When the monarchs heard this, their hearts trembled. Never would they have thought that Enlin would be such a terrifying existence. At the same time, they rejoiced in their hearts. Fortunately, they didn't take the initiative to deal with that evildoer. Otherwise, their lives would be in danger. The Darkwing Emperor pondered for a moment before summoning a crow. He tapped the black light on the crow's head and injected all the information he had learned into the crow's body. The crow flapped its wings and flew away, blending into the darkness and disappearing. He definitely had to get the evil-slaying sword back. All he could do now was pass on some useful information to the moonlit night monarch so that she would be more confident in her mission. On a blood-red land, evil spirits were wailing. In front of a tall, dog-headed, human-bodied monster in black armor stood a slender, black-clothed woman with a face as white as the moon. A crow appeared from the void of space and landed on the woman's shoulder. The woman closed her eyes, sensing the message from the crow. Then, her face changed slightly as waves of shock surged in her heart. It can't be real. And Lin's strength is already so heaven-defying? She felt as if her worldview had been refreshed once again, and she began to question her analysis. Would the return to Void Stage cannon fodder still be of any use? The woman looked at the dog-headed monster before her with a hesitant expression in the dark marshlands. Emperor Yi Deng glowered at the 4 people before him with an enraged expression. He pointed at a woman with short golden hair. Look at Daisy. She has obtained 3 golden realm essence crystals and 15 red realm essence crystals. He then pointed at the other 3 people. Cassidy, Tobias, Merlin, the three of you combined don't even have as much as she has. It's not that Daisy has too much. It's that you have too little, understand? During the next 100 years, the divine blood tower's distribution of resources will be cut by 30% from your sex. Daisy chuckled lightly with a seductive expression on her face. She was only a mighty figure at the pinnacle of the return to void initial stage. Who would have thought that she would be able to completely dominate the three people before her? Cassidy, Tobias, and Merlin immediately bowed their heads in apology, but they were sneering in their hearts. Who the F***CK cared about your divine blood tower? Holy blood was what they were after. Cassidy was already at the return to void intermediate stage, and Merlin was also showing signs of making a breakthrough after being purified by Enlin's holy blood. It wouldn't be long before he progressed to the return to void intermediate stage. Tobias was already at the pinnacle of the return to void intermediate stage, and he was currently attempting to fuse with Enlin's holy blood to attain an unprecedented blood tribe Tao in order to progress to the return to void final stage. At the same time, one returned to void stage mighty figure after another in the Garden of Eden, the Buddhist kingdom, the West Sea Divine Palace, and the Dragon Court of the Eastern Seas brought back news that Enlin's name had shaken the entire continent for the first time. Celestial Court Xiuxian United University. A black brick pierced through the clouds and arrived at this familiar campus. Wow, Giant Enlin, this is where you go to school. It's so big and beautiful. Tina's eyes glowed with a bright green light as she spoke with excitement on her face. There was a vast expanse of immortal buildings, beautiful mountain peaks and colorful clouds swirling across the land. Every single place exuded a sense of serenity and beauty, and there was also extremely rich, vital energy here. Compared to the perilous environment of the ancient Tai Chu realm, this was indeed a heavenly place. Even Enlin was struck by a sense of comfort and relaxation. Master is studying here. Are you here to train in the mortal world? Xiao Zhe stroked his chin. No, this is where I'm studying. This is where I'm cultivating. And Lin retorted, Oh, all right, I understand. Xiao Zhe nodded with an earnest expression. It looked like there was no mistaking it. This was where Master was training in the mortal world. After all, no Almighty would say that they were in the secular world when they were training in the secular world. He was who he was, and what he experienced was what he wanted to experience. Shui Zhantian looked up into the sky and murmured to himself, This place is a little close to the sky. Is this the pinnacle of the heavens? And Lin scratched his head. I guess so. The celestial court is indeed quite high up. Giant and Lin, are we going to live here? Tina looked at the picturesque scenery with excitement and anticipation in her eyes, and Lin nodded. That's right. The vital energy here is extremely rich, so it'll be very beneficial for you to cultivate here. Emperor Ziwei has already spoken to Vice Principal Yu Hua about this, and the Vice Principal has already agreed. You guys have to be good and don't cause any trouble. Tina whooped with joy. She was clearly very fond of this place. I'm going to take you to see a very important person. You have to do your best, and Lin instructed with a solemn expression. Who? Xiao Zhe asked. Your master's wife, and Lin replied. Gasp! Xiao Zhe drew a sharp intake of breath as a solemn expression appeared on his face. Even Tina and Shui Zhantian were getting a little nervous, and they became a lot more obedient as they looked forward to seeing what their master's Tao partner was like. Chapter 583. And Lin looked up at the sky and estimated that it was about time for school to end. As per usual, Su Xiaolan would return to her dorm room to sip some tea and rest before cultivating in the Vermilion Bird sect. And Lin stood in front of the door and knocked on it with an uneasy expression on his face. Knock, knock, knock. The sound of knocking on the door was beating in sync with his heart. After a month of abrupt separation and experiencing so many hardships, he felt as if he had been separated from Su Xiaolan for a very long time, and his heart was filled with both longing and anxiety. Tina and Shui Zhantian flew beside Enlin with curiosity and anticipation on their faces. Meanwhile, Xiaoze forced a warm and natural smile onto his face, and after tidying his hair, he stood upright with his hands pressed against the edges of his pants, as if he were afraid that he would leave a bad impression on Su Xiaolan. The door opened. A figure that he had been thinking about day and night appeared before Enlin, and a fragrant scent wafted through his nose. Su Xiaolan was still wearing her jade barley ink garment, and her silky black hair cascaded down her shoulders. Her beautiful face was flushed with a hint of holiness and nobility, and she appeared to be exceptionally beautiful. She opened her mouth slightly at the sight of the person outside the door, and a layer of mist flashed through her clear eyes before she bit down on her lower lip with a smile. "Who are you looking for?" And Lin almost stumbled upon hearing this, but he quickly came to his senses with a smile. "I'm looking for Enlin's Dao partner." "I'm sorry, but I don't have an Enlin's Dao partner with me." Su Xiaolan's voice was as light as the chirping of an oriole, and she stared directly at Enlin with her bright eyes. The faint smile on her face betrayed her current emotions. Then I'm here to present my adorable pet to the beautiful celestial maiden Xiaolan." And Lin thought for a moment before grabbing the round and plump Shui Zhantian and shoving him into Su Xiaolan's arms. Su Xiaolan didn't expect Enlin to answer like this and was slightly stunned. Then she focused her attention on the soft and fluffy cute thing in her arms, and a look of surprise appeared on her face again. This is a snow soul beast." A joyful smile appeared on Su Xiaolan's face as she caressed Shui Zhantian's body with her fair, jade-like hands. From his intricate and adorable wings to his delicate little nose to his round and bulging body, she couldn't stop herself from caressing him. Shui Zhantian was just about to let loose a torrent of abuse at the sight of this rude petting, but it immediately shut its mouth at the sight of Enlin's menacing gaze. "Celestial maiden Xiaolan, what do you think of my present?" And Lin took this opportunity to speak with anticipation. Su Xiaolan's brows perked up slightly as she turned around with Shui Zhantian in her arms. "Looks like you're showing some sincerity. Come on in." And Lin strode into the room excitedly as if he had just been granted amnesty. Su Xiaolan put down Shui Zhantian and began to brew tea for Enlin and the others. Her eyes lingered on Enlin's face as she asked in a crisp voice, "How have you been during your trip to the ancient Taichu realm? You're not missing any limbs, are you?" And Lin could sense the concern in Su Xiaolan's voice, and he shook his head with a buoyant smile. "Don't worry, I'm doing well, and I've obtained many good things as well. Listen to me slowly. Oh, right, these are my beast pets, Tina and Shui Zhantian. That's my disciple, Xiaoze." And Lin pointed to a few people around him as he introduced them. "Celestial maiden Xiaolan, you're so beautiful." Tina waved at Su Xiaolan with a wide grin on her face. "Greetings, master's wife." Xiaoze extended a respectful salute toward Su Xiaolan. He could sense that there was an extremely pure dragon tribe bloodline within Su Xiaolan's body, and this aura struck him with a sense of intimacy and intimacy. Aside from that, he could also sense an extremely terrifying bloodline aura. This aura was vast and profound, and it struck him with even greater awe and veneration toward his master's Dao partner. Shui Zhantian flapped his wings with a fawning expression. "Mistress, you are truly a devastatingly beautiful woman." Su Xiaolan's face convulsed slightly, and she was no longer able to maintain her composure. What had Enlin been through during the past month? "Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking care of Enlin in the ruins." She took a moment to compose herself before extending a warm smile toward Tina and the others. She then handed them cups of freshly brewed tea in a gentle and dignified manner. Xiao, Zhe, and Tina accepted the tea with flattered expressions before waving their hands and explaining that it was Enlin who was taking care of them. After a brief conversation, Enlin sent Tina, Shui Zhantian, and Xiao Zhe out to play. It was best to discuss important matters in private, as it would be inconvenient to have a few extra goosebumps around. After that, Lin eagerly began to share his experiences with Su Xiaolan. He didn't hide anything from Su Xiaolan, and he told her everything that he had experienced in full detail. Su Xiaolan rested her chin in her hands as she listened intently to Enlin. She would tense up whenever Enlin encountered danger, and she would heave a sigh of relief when Enlin took care of the danger. The bizarre world of the ancient Tai Chu realm slowly unfolded before her eyes. Her mouth gaped open in shock when she heard that Enlin had taken in 3 blood tribe mighty figures as his servants. After hearing that Enlin had obtained a disciple, she couldn't help but burst into laughter, and 2 dimples appeared on her face as she laughed. Enlin enjoyed this feeling very much. Regardless of whether it was seeing the woman before him worry for him, or be happy for him, or reprimand him for taking such risks, he was always filled with a sense of bliss. Enlin told Su Xiaolan about the illusionary realm that he had encountered in Qi Lu City. That was an extremely bizarre experience, and even Su Xiaolan's heart skipped a beat upon hearing it. Enlin, what would you do if I really became an Enlin with different memories one day? Enlin asked curiously as he recalled the Su Xiaolan he had encountered in the illusionary realm in Qi Lu City. Su Xiaolan's brows furrowed as she looked deeply into Enlin's eyes. There was a hint of determination in her eyes, and she didn't give him a direct answer. Instead, she replied with a serious expression. I think that as long as you're still you, I'll fall in love with you again, even if our shared memories disappear. She seemed to have realized that the atmosphere was a little off as she spoke, and a faint blush appeared on her delicate cheeks as she averted her gaze. Her pristine, white ears peeked out from beneath her hair, and they were also a little flushed. Enlin's heart jolted upon hearing this, and he felt as if he had been smeared with honey. Was this Su Xiaolan confessing to him again? What was he supposed to do next? Lean in and kiss her? Her head was already turned away. Wouldn't that be a little too abrupt? Just as Enlin was immersed in his own fantasies, Su Xiaolan spoke again. Didn't you say that you had something to confess to me after encountering the heavenly void beast? What is it? Enlin's heart jolted upon hearing this. It was already time for the main event. Would he be beaten to death by Su Xiaolan if he told her? Enlin composed himself and pretended to speak in a casual manner. Ahem, Xiaolan, what if I told you that I formed a connection with a little whale by chance, and it insisted on calling me daddy? What would you think? Su Xiaolan faltered slightly upon hearing this before her eyes widened, and she drew a sharp intake of breath as a hint of incredulity appeared in her voice. What did you just say? Say it again. Chapter 584. A whale is calling you daddy? You're into that. Su Xiaolan's slender hand gripped the teacup, and a small crack immediately appeared on the magic tool teacup due to her poor control of her strength. This was a clear indication of just how volatile her emotions were. No, that's not the point. Why you did that to the whale? She stared at Enlin with incredulity on her face, and a deep blush appeared on her face. In order to prevent Su Xiaolan from going berserk, Enlin immediately offered an explanation. Don't be in such a hurry, I'll tell you everything. Enlin didn't dare to hide anything from her, and he recounted how he had stolen the Heavenly Void Beast's fertility spell technique, how he had used that power, and how the Heavenly Void Beast had given birth to a baby Heavenly Void Beast. Su Xiaolan's expression eased significantly after hearing the entire story, but there was still a hint of melancholy in her eyes. She heaved a forlorn sigh. Your trip to the ancient Tai Chu realm was fruitful. Not only do you have a beast pet, a disciple, and even a child, and Lin knew that now was not the time to refute Su Xiaolan's words. The most important thing was to express his sincerity, so he immediately brought out a golden immortal fruit from his storage ring. Su Xiaolan, this is a 5th grade immortal fruit I obtained in the ancient Tai Chu realm, the 6th Revolution Phoenix fruit. If a user with a fire-type bloodline consumes this fruit, it will help them observe the intent of the Tao of Fire and it will also enhance and purify their flame power bloodline. I think it will be quite useful to you, so please accept it." Su Xiaolan accepted the immortal fruit and sensed the pure flame power imbued within it. The golden light emanating from the immortal fruit made her features appear even more beautiful. "I didn't think you would still remember to bring me a present." "Of course." And Lin replied with a smug expression, "Also, that snow soul beast. I'll give it to you if you like it. It's a little despicable and likes to spout nonsense, but it's quite a good pet." Su Xiaolan quickly waved her hands. "Forget it. I'll leave it with you. You already have so many pet beasts anyway. It's not a bad idea to have them all in one nest. If I like it, I'll go over to your place and hug it." "Okay." And Lin didn't refuse. In any case, he could just let his pet beasts be. He couldn't be bothered to worry about it. Thus, the two of them began to talk about other things. It appeared that Xiaolan was quite understanding and didn't dwell too much on the little whale matter. And Lin heaved an internal sigh of relief upon seeing this. After that, their conversation was very harmonious. The two of them seemed to have forgotten about the time. Only the sounds of laughter could be heard coming from outside the pavilion. Tina, Shuizhantian, and Xiao Zhe were getting a little bored waiting outside, and they began to look for things to do. "Hey, there seems to be someone singing over there." Tina looked toward the nearby pavilion with a curious expression, and she hesitated momentarily before following the direction of the voice. "Isn't that Master's house? He told us to wait for him to come out before we go in together," Xiaozhe said. However, Tina couldn't hold herself back. She was going to go in sooner or later anyway, so what difference did it make? She flew toward the direction of the voice and landed on a windowsill in the pavilion, where a little red flower was swaying joyfully under the light of the setting sun. It was photosynthesizing as it sang a pleasant song. "Don't be fooled by the fact that I'm just a sheep. The grass is more fragrant because of me. The sky is bluer because of me, and the clouds are softer because of me." Tina flew toward the little red flower and raised her pristine, pointy ears as curiosity and amazement appeared in her green eyes. "Wow, a little red flower that can sing. How interesting!" Xiao Hong's singing voice faltered as she looked toward the little red flower with astonishment in her voice. "Wow, it's a little person with wings, and it's so adorable and beautiful." Xiao Hong had never seen a fairy before. At this moment, Tina was twice as tall as she was, but in her eyes, Tina was still a little person. Tina giggled. Perhaps it was due to the fact that all fairies had a natural affinity for plant life forms, but she was quite fond of Xiao Hong. She immediately nodded in agreement. "That's right. I'm a tiny person, and Lin is a giant." Xiao Hong's head faltered slightly upon hearing this. "Huh, you know Lin as well." "That's right. My name is Tina, and I'm his fifth beast pet," Tina replied with a smug expression. Xiao Hong. So Master went to the ancient Tai Chu realm to kidnap this little girl as his beast pet? Xiao Hong thought to herself as a vibrant smile appeared on her face. "Nice to meet you. My name is Xiao Hong, and I'm also Lin's beast pet." "Ah, so you're Big Boss Hong." Tina let loose a cry of surprise as she stared blankly at the little red flower before her. She had only ever heard Lin mention Xiao Hong's name and how she ranked number one among his beast pets. In her mind, Lin's first beast pet had to be an extremely powerful and domineering queen, Red Queen. However, she didn't think that Big Boss Hong would be such an adorable little red flower. "Did Master give you a pet name?" Xiao Hong asked with a curious expression. "Pet name?" Tina faltered slightly upon hearing this before a smile appeared on her face. "He calls me Little Na. Xiao Hong. Master is so good to you." Tina was at a loss as to why Xiao Hong was suddenly in such low spirits. "Dabai, Xiao Cho, Little Wolf, come out and receive our guest. We have a new member." Xiao Hong suddenly yelled in her sweet voice. A commotion erupted within the dorm room. Immediately afterward, Dabai, Xiao Cho, and Little Wolf all gathered around the windowsill before peering outside with curiosity in their eyes. They were greeted by the sight of a little person in a fluttering white dress with a pair of golden wings on her back. Her features were so perfect that it was tempting to look at them with curiosity in her gem-like eyes. "Let me introduce you guys. This is Tina," Master brought her back. She's the fifth, so you can just call her Little Na." Xiao Hong introduced in her sweet voice. "Then this is Dabai, this is Xiao Cho, and this is Little Wolf." Gasp! What a beautiful girl! Dabai drew a sharp intake of breath as he stared at Tina. His eyes glowed with excitement. Gasp! What an ugly giant god-fiend! Tina also drew a sharp intake of breath as she stared at Xiao Cho. "Xiao Cho, is she talking about me? What did I do wrong? Why is this the first thing she's saying? I didn't say anything, so why did I get shot?" Just as Xiao Cho was sighing with grief, Xiao Zhe carried Shui Zhantian to the windowsill before looking at all the beast pets in the room with curiosity in his eyes. All of the beast pets in the room were also drawn to Xiao Zhe and Shui Zhantian. In particular, Shui Zhantian's adorable appearance attracted the attention of almost all of the beast pets in the room. Gasp! What an adorable Qiu-Qiu! Dabai drew a sharp intake of breath as he stared at Shui Zhantian. Gasp! What an ugly monkey! Shui Zhantian drew a sharp intake of breath as he stared at Xiao Cho. "Xiao Cho, so what exactly did I do wrong?" Chapter 585. Before they knew it, Enlin and Su Xiaolan chatted for a long time. When Enlin came out, the sky had already darkened, and the moon slowly appeared in the night sky along with the specks of stars. He didn't see Xiao Zhe, Shui Zhantian, or Tina outside the door, and he faltered slightly. He then seemed to have sensed something, and he turned toward the brightly lit pavilion next to Su Xiaolan's. Enlin pushed open the door, and the living room was bustling with activity under the illumination of the candlelight. Shui Zhantian was being happily patted around by Dabai and Little Lang like a fur ball. Shui Zhantian was yelling at Enlin to stop them, but a peculiar blush appeared on his furry face. It had to be said that both wolves and dogs had an extremely peculiar fondness for ball-type toys. Xiao Hong and Tina were standing by the window and whispering to each other. I can photosynthesize just by activating my cultivation method like this." Tina's semi-transparent golden wings were fully extended, and a faint light radiated from them as a faint energy began to accumulate. "That's right. We can still photosynthesize for another 15 minutes before the sun completely disappears." Xiao Hong swayed her head with excitement. Xiao Cho stood off to the side with an expression of disappointment and sorrow on his face, as if he had been dealt a heavy blow. Xiaoza, on the other hand, was trying to enlighten him like an old man. The young man's youthful face, paired with this expression, gave off a strange contrast of cuteness. A faint smile appeared on Enlin's face. This kind of atmosphere made him feel very warm. He had initially planned to introduce his new beast pets one by one, but he didn't think that they would already be familiar with each other, which saved him a lot of effort. "Big brother, and you're finally back, woof." Dabai immediately pounced toward Enlin with excitement. Enlin stroked Dabai's head with a buoyant smile. "It's only been a month, and you're already so happy to see me?" Dabai stuck out his tongue and licked Enlin's face. "Of course. I have to thank Big Brother and for recruiting 2 more underlings for me. Woof." Enlin's face twitched. So this was what Dabai was happy about. He sensed carefully. After a month, Dabai's aura had become stronger. He should not be far from comprehending his personal domain. Xiao Hong's half-step soul formation stage had already stabilized, and with the help of the blood god Jade, her domain should be more or less complete. She could now take the final step toward the soul formation stage. However, the one who had improved the most was the white-scaled wolf god. When it had emerged from the vermilion bird trial grounds with Enlin, it was already at the pinnacle of the true force stage. After leaving its original world and coming to the celestial court, which was an extremely suitable cultivation environment, it had broken through to the return to void stage 10 days ago. He heard that Vice Principal Yuhua had helped him a lot during his tribulation transcendence. He had to find some time to thank him. Master, Master, I heard that I have underlings now, and they are 3 returned to Void Stage Blood Tribe Mighty Figures. Is that true? Little Lang ran toward Lin with an obedient expression as it wagged its tail with elation. And Lin stroked Little Lang's white fur with a smile. That's right. I'll introduce them to you when the opportunity presents itself. You're the big boss, so you have to be a good role model. Little Lang took a deep breath as its eyes lit up with excitement. Don't worry, I'll be sure to do that. He had managed to subdue 3 return to Void Stage Mighty Figures as his servants after just 1 trip to the other world. Such a powerful being. The white-scaled wolf god had chosen the right person, and Lin sat down on a chair and clapped his hands together. Come on, it's time for me to distribute the benefits. The eyes of Dabai, Shui Zhantian, and the other beast pets all lit up upon hearing this, and they all gathered around Lin. Xiao Hong couldn't be bothered to move, and it continued to photosynthesize. Tina also began to photosynthesize beside Xiao Hong upon seeing this, and Lin's face convulsed upon seeing this. How could he lead Little Na astray so quickly? This was intolerable. No, he had to teach Tina, who had the most authority in this family. Ahem. And Lin coughed lightly before turning to the 2 figures on the windowsill with a stern expression. Xiao Hong, Little Na, what are you 2 doing? Master is about to distribute the benefits. Hurry up and come over. Don't worry about me. Just let me photosynthesize. Xiao Hong replied in her sweet voice. Big Sister Xiao Hong said that the sun is extremely precious every day and must not be wasted. We have to grab onto the last bit of light and heat from the sun. Otherwise, if we miss this opportunity, we'll never be able to come back, Tina chimed in. And Lin's chest constricted upon hearing this. Don't worry, the sun will rise again tomorrow. You can continue photosynthesizing. Xiao Hong shook her head. That's different. Tomorrow's sun is tomorrow's sun, and today's sun is today's sun. Every bit of light and heat only exists in that time and space, and they are irreplaceable. Wow. Big Sister Xiao Hong is right. Tina clapped her hands in admiration, as if she had already been won over by Lin's theory. And Lin, Big Brother ignore those 2 and distribute the benefits to us, woof. Dabai urged with an excited expression, and Lin nodded with a resigned expression before gripping his storage ring. The storage ring flashed, and 120 spirit pills and 120 spirit fruits appeared on the table and the ground, all of which exuded an alluring light. Dabai, Xiao Cho, Little Lang, and Little Tian, you guys take 20 spirit pills and spirit fruits each. Long live Master! Woof! Dabai pounced over excitedly and began making his selection. Master is so generous and generous to help those in need. Shui Zhantian also pounced over and picked out the ice-type spirit pills and spirit fruits. Xiao, Cho, and Little Lang also ran over to the pile of spirit pills and spirit fruits to pick out what they wanted. Were the spirit pills and spirit fruits valuable? Of course they were. Even the entire fortune of a soul formation stage cultivator wouldn't be worth 20 spirit pills and 20 spirit fruits. This benefit was equivalent to each of the beast pets receiving the entire fortune of a soul formation stage cultivator. So how could they not be excited? Dabai, Xiao Cho, Little Lang, and Little Tian all wore satisfied expressions after picking out the spirit pills and spirit fruits they wanted. Little Xiao, give the remaining 40 spirit pills and spirit fruits to Xiao Hong and Tina, and Lin instructed. Xiao Zhe nodded with a smile before unleashing a spell technique to deliver the spirit pills and spirit fruits to Tina and Xiao Hong. Tears welled up in Tina's eyes as she stared at Lin in astonishment. Giant and Lin, can I also get 20 spirit pills and 20 spirit fruits? And Lin nodded with a smile. Of course. I told you we're family from now on. This was the time for Enlin to display his true magnanimity and authority. It didn't matter how Xiao Hong and Tina treated him. He could forgive them no matter how bad their attitudes were. Furthermore, his attitude toward Little Red and Tina didn't change at all. Sure enough, Tina was already sobbing uncontrollably as she wiped away her tears with her slender little hands. Even Xiao Hong withdrew her flower and spirit fruits before dragging Tina toward Enlin with her little green hands. "Let's go, little Na. There's no sun now." "Huh. No way. I could still sense a little bit of the sun when I used the cultivation method you taught me." Tina was a little perplexed. Xiao Hong dragged Tina over to the beast pets before speaking in a sweet voice. "It's just a little bit, so it's okay. It's warmer here." Chapter 586. And Lin was quite elated to see Xiao Hong and Tina make their way over to him. He continued, "The spirit pills and spirit fruits are only the appetizers. There's still more to come." So many spirit pills and spirit fruits were only the appetizers. There was still more to come. All of the beast pets were extremely excited, and even their breathing had become a lot heavier. First up is Tina. "You can have that Heart Lotus Ice Sword. I don't have any use for it anyway. Also, take this holy ice lotus and nourish it with the Heart Lotus Ice Sword. It'll give the immortal tool a chance to advance to a higher rank." And Lin brought out a lotus with holy aura revolving around it from his storage ring and handed it to Tina. Tina was extremely touched as she accepted the holy ice lotus. If it weren't for the fact that she was a little shy at the sight of so many beast pets, she would definitely have given Enlin a big hug. Next up is Shuezhantian. These are 3 8th grade immortal fruits. The red ice immortal fruit is for you. It's very useful for improving your ice-type cultivation base, as well as strengthening your soul and allowing you to observe the power of ice. You're already at the pinnacle of the true power stage, so you should learn from Little Lang and break through to the return to void stage as soon as possible. And Lin brought out 3 red and white immortal fruits from his storage ring. "Don't worry, Master. I'll definitely work hard and forge ahead." Shuezhantian was drooling at the sight of these immortal fruits, and he immediately pounced toward them. And Lin nodded before bringing out a bronze dagger from his storage ring and handing it to Dabai. "Dabai, this is an ancient artifact, the Shield of Promised Victory. It's imbued with the power of the vow and the belief of victory, so it has extremely powerful protective abilities. Keep it for yourself." Dabai faltered slightly upon hearing this. "What about you, big brother and woof?" And Lin smiled. "I already have the heavenly ice silkworm garment, so I'll leave this one for you." He actually had another consideration, and that was that Dabai's cultivation base was still quite low. As such, it was better to protect Dabai first rather than strengthen his attacks. Touched, Dabai accepted the dagger and tucked it in his left pocket, using his dog fur to roll it up. And Lin took out a twisted golden object, which he had obtained in the ancient battlefield of the Dragon Court of the Eastern Seas. "This is the Vajra soul. Little wolf, take it and refine it into your body. It can strengthen your physique and consolidate your realm." The white-scaled wolf god accepted the Vajra soul with an excited expression. They were clearly servants, but Enlin treated them like pet beasts. This made the white-scaled wolf god feel an indescribable sense of belonging. And Lin then turned his gaze toward Xiao Chou. He brought out a suit of black armor and a semi-transparent bone from his storage ring. "Xiao Chou, this is the black crystal armor. If you fuse it with your armor, you might be able to evolve it into an immortal tool. This is the ethereal spirit bone. Absorbing it will greatly increase the strength of your bones." And Lin had originally planned to use the void spirit bone for himself, but he already had the body of the war god, so this item was a little redundant. It was perfect for the clown. Xiao Chou was feeling a little gloomy, but a joyful smile finally appeared on his face when he saw these 2 items. All of the items Lin had given him were extremely precious, and all of them were very suitable for the beast pet's current situation, so they were able to provide for the beast pet's needs. This was not a coincidence. It was just that Enlin simply had too many treasures. He just had to pick out a treasure that suited his pet beast's needs. Enlin finally turned to Xiaohong, and he paused momentarily before pulling out a long sword from his storage ring. The long sword was entirely golden in color, but it was a very gentle golden color. As soon as it appeared in Enlin's hand, a miniature golden crow appeared around the blade of the sword. Ice, fire, yin and yang revolved around the blade of the sword, exuding a rich and powerful aura. This is the dancing heavenly sun sword, an intermediate rank immortal tool. It was forged from the dark glacial Tao enlightenment stone, which is the habitat of the golden crow, a mythological beast. It can reverse yin and yang and attain immortality. I recall that you inherited the golden crow from the purple star, right? This was an immortal tool that Enlin had taken from the snow maiden Rogu. It could be used for both ice and fire types, but Xiaohong's main cultivation was the golden crow, so it was clearly more suitable for her. All of the beast pets swallowed involuntarily at the sight of this immortal sword as they stared at it with scorching light in their eyes. It was quite clear that this was the most precious gift. This was an intermediate rank immortal tool. Even a Tao integration stage true god wouldn't give it away so easily. He had even given an elementary rank immortal tool to Tina. Perhaps only their nouveau riche master would have such boldness. Master, this is too precious. I think I can do it without a weapon. Xiaohong spoke hesitantly. I don't need it anyway. I told you to take it, so just take it. And Lin shoved the long sword into Xiaohong's hands with an earnest expression. Touch this sword when you have nothing to do. After all, it was forged from the Tao enlightenment stone, which the primordial mythological beast, the golden crow, rested on. Maybe you'll attain enlightenment just by touching it. Xiaohong raised her crimson head, and a small droplet of water appeared on her flower. She nodded with an earnest expression. All right, I'll listen to you, master. And Lin clapped his hands with a smile. All right, that's all for now. If you need anything else, feel free to tell me. Even if I don't have it in my storage ring, I can buy it for you. I'm not short on money. All of the beast pets were extremely excited upon hearing this. It didn't matter if a master was rich or not. The most important thing was that he was generous, and that made him very popular. Long live Big Brother and Woof. Dubai raised his paw high into the air and cheered. Long live Master. Little Lang chimed in. Immediately afterward, Xiao Chou, Xue Zhantian, Tina, and Xiaohong also began to cheer. All of a sudden, the dorm room became a sea of raucous joy. A sense of accomplishment welled up in Enlin's heart as he looked at all of his beast pets. Master, do I not have any benefits? Xiao Zhe tugged on Enlin's sleeve with a pitiable expression. Enlin's expression faltered upon hearing this. Holy F asterisk CK. He had almost forgotten about this disciple of his. Of course not. I've prepared something good for you. And Lin chuckled. Really? Xiao's eyes lit up and his face was full of anticipation. And Lin nodded as his mind raced. What should he prepare for his disciple? He was a mighty figure at the pinnacle of the return to void intermediate stage, and he was also a member of the primordial dragon tribe. What kind of treasures had he not seen? It seemed like it would be very difficult to find something that was suitable for him. Regal crown? No, he had to keep this for himself. Divine flame bead? That was even more impossible. That was a gift from Xiaolan. Heavenly frost bead? The dragon tribe didn't seem to be interested in ice-type weapons. Xiao Zhe was a little hesitant at the sight of Enlin's contemplative expression. Master, have you not decided yet? Of course not. And Lin waved his hand, and a light flashed from his storage ring. Immediately afterward, an extremely thick immortal eel appeared before everyone. Even though it was already dead, the return to void stage aura emanating from its body still made everyone's breathing falter. This is for you. And Lin said, Xiao Zhe's lips twitched. Master, didn't you take this immortal eel from my treasure vault? It felt a little weird to be giving something that belonged to him. And Lin chuckled as his storage ring flashed again, and a frying pan appeared. I'm not giving it to you right now. I'm going to cook a delicious meal for my disciple. Xiao Zhe shuddered upon hearing this, and he stared blankly at Enlin. He was suddenly struck by a sense of home at the sight of Enlin's warm smile. He had no family, no friends, but his master was here to accompany him. All of the beast pets' eyes also lit up. In particular, Dabai and Little Lang were drooling. This was a frying pan dish. The immortal eel was a return to Void Stage mighty figure, so its meat was extremely nutritious and had many incredible effects. That night, all of the beast pets had a super blissful feast. As for Xiao Zhe, he was on the verge of tears as he confessed that this was the most delicious meal he had eaten in tens of thousands of years. And Lin also smiled with elation at the sight of his joyous family. This kind of life really wasn't bad. Chapter 587. Breaking news. Breaking news. The Celestial Court's gold medal snack, Dubai's stuffed buns, will be on sale at a 50% discount tomorrow. 3,000 steamers of Dubai's stuffed buns will be on sale on that day, and the purchase limit will be changed so that each student can purchase 10 steamers of stuffed buns. This news spread like wildfire throughout the entire Xiaoxian United University, creating a heated discussion. My God, I haven't had the chance to eat Dubai's stuffed buns for a month. I didn't expect happiness to come so suddenly. He's selling so many steamers of stuffed buns at the same time, and it's even at a 50% discount. Will they still taste as good as before? 500 spirit stones isn't a bad deal. Won't you find out after trying it tomorrow? Senior and Lin's products are definitely the best. He won't ruin his own reputation. Just as the students were discussing fervently, and Lin was sitting leisurely in the classroom, listening to the lecture. The long-awaited learning at the university allowed him to relax both physically and mentally. His state of mind was clear and natural, and even his efficiency in listening to the lecture was much higher. A little fairy in a fluttering white dress sat on Enlin's shoulder, blinking her eyes curiously. It could be said that her appearance caused quite a stir in the class. Her petite and exquisite figure, as well as her features that were so perfect and holy that no one dared to even think of profanity, instantly caused Enlin to turn his head to look at her several hundred times. What this meant was that she turned her head more than once. Some students couldn't help but turn their heads to look at the extremely beautiful little fairy, even during the lecture. And Lin didn't want to be so ostentatious, but Tina insisted on coming to see what the lecture was like. With Vice Principal Yu Hua's tacit approval, he brought this little fairy along. Today was a public pill refinement class, and the teacher, Yi Jia, was a rather renowned pill refinement master in the Kingdom of the Nine States. Xiaolan didn't need to attend pill refinement classes anymore. She was a soul creation stage pill refinement master, similar to teacher Yi Jia. Which meant that she could also become a teacher at Xiaoxian United University. Tina listened very attentively in the lecture. She had never come into contact with the alchemy system before, but now it was as if she had opened the door to a new world, and her green eyes were glowing with vigor. She also often followed her teacher's demonstration, gathering white holy flames on her fingertips and practicing with him. She was even more serious than Enlin when it came to learning. A light breeze occasionally blew in from outside the window, and a faint fragrance drifted over from Tina's direction. That was probably her unique scent, and it was quite refreshing. And Lin's alchemy skills were terrible, and he was only at the peak of the flame mastery state. However, since he had the frying pan, he decided to study hard. That was because immortal chefs and alchemy actually had something in common. The way in which various ingredients were cooked and the way in which alchemy could bring out the essence of medicinal ingredients was actually similar. He was the man who wanted to become the god of cooking, so he naturally couldn't miss out on the necessary learning. After class, Su Qianyun, Luo Zipping, Zongyongyan, Miao Tian, and the others all gathered around Tina with curiosity in their eyes. They surrounded Enlin and asked him all kinds of questions. Tina had never been surrounded by so many giants before, and she immediately grabbed onto Enlin's hair nervously as she shrunk back in fear and embarrassment. In the end, it was the gentle and considerate class rep Xin Yuancheng who came out to maintain order. He chased away the onlookers and told them to calm down before he asked the questions as the student representative. And Lin knew that Big Brother Cheng was actually more curious than the other students, and this could be seen from the light in his eyes. And Lin thought about it for a moment before giving Big Brother Cheng a brief explanation of Tina's background. This interlude passed by quickly, and before they knew it, the day's lessons drew to a close. Tina had learned a lot, and she said that she was going to continue attending classes with Enlin the next day. It felt a little weird for a return to Void Stage Fairy to always want to attend classes with a Soul Formation Stage teacher. However, everyone had their own specialties, so Enlin didn't have any objections. That night, a huge table was set up in the dorm room. Today, Enlin was going to have a good meal with his friends. This trip to the ancient Tai Chu realm had been extremely perilous, so they naturally had to celebrate after successfully completing their mission. Enlin and Su Xiaolan were preparing the ingredients for a hot pot dinner. The frying pan could only enhance the flavor of the hot pot for the first time, so the broth and ingredients were very particular. If they were prepared well, the hot pot could last for a very long time. Xianyuan Cheng, Su Qianyin, Tang Shimin, Lu Qianhuan, Yao Mingxi, Huguan Yao Xiu, Lu Debao, and the others all arrived at Enlin's home, and they were all astonished by the scene before their eyes. Wow, what an adorable snow soul beast! Su Qianyun's bright blue eyes glowed with an unprecedented light. She completely disregarded her princess-like demeanor for the first time as she hurriedly rushed over and picked up Shui Zhantian. What a huge soul, Luo! Wait, not only is this soul Luo huge, it even has wings. Lu Qianhuan also ran over with a vibrant smile on her face as she rubbed Shui Zhantian's body with her slender hands. Immediately afterward, Yao Xiu and Miao Tian also rushed over. Stupid woman, let go of me. If it weren't for Master, I wouldn't have allowed myself to be manipulated like this. Shui Zhantian's round body was rubbed into all kinds of shapes again as he was ravaged. Soul Luo, I'm Lakis. I tossed you onto Student Qianyun's body. Can you pull me over? Lu Qianhuan asked with a wide grin. Shui Zhantian. And Lin clasped his face in his hands. Lu Qianhuan was way too into character. However, he took a closer look at Shui Zhantian and found that he really did resemble the Soul Luo from the League of Valor. Elsewhere, Enlin discovered that a bunch of grown men were staring at him with scorching eyes. Tang Shimin exclaimed in amazement, "You fulfilled all of my fantasies of beauty." Lu Debao also sighed with emotion. "It's a pity that you're too small." "Don't say that. Can't you see that he's already feeling a little embarrassed?" Yao Mingxi advised, and Lin knew that these men weren't looking at him. Instead, they were looking at Tina, who was perched on his shoulder. Tina's beauty was already comparable to Chang Yi's, and she was also a cute and adorable fairy, so it was no wonder that these men were so amazed. After that, Enlin introduced them to his disciple, Xiao Zhe. When they found out that Xiao Zhe was a primordial dragon tribe, mighty figure at the pinnacle of the return to Void Intermediate Stage, they were dumbstruck. Thankfully, they had been through a lot of scares during their time with Enlin, so their hearts were quite resilient. Thus, they were able to quickly recover and enjoy this hot pot meal. At the dining table, everyone discussed their dreams. Tang Shimin announced his goal, which was to attain his domain before graduation. Everyone felt like he was a lazy bum, and he sobbed with tears streaming down his face. This was the power that the #1 prodigy of the cohort should possess. He was under a lot of pressure from hanging out with a bunch of supremely talented prodigies. Lu Qianhuan was about to graduate, and she was hesitating between returning to her sect or staying in the celestial court. She also had an idea, which was to go to Earth and design a game that was popular all over the world. There was nothing wrong with being a cheater and becoming a game designer. Xianyuan Cheng dreamed of building a new sect. Su Qianyun dreamed of capturing a snow soul beast in 500 years, and Lu Debao dreamed of returning to the sect for free one day. Everyone chatted and drank to their heart's content. Perhaps many years later, they would be able to recall this night and recall the simple dreams they had spoken of. It was such a beautiful night. Chapter 588. The next day, all 3,000 steamers of Dubai's stuffed buns were sold out. Everyone in the celestial court was eating stuffed buns for breakfast. There were students who hadn't eaten stuffed buns for a long time and wanted to eat their fill. Students who thought the buns were too expensive and were now taking advantage of the 50% discount. Students and teachers who were loyal stuffed bun lovers. These were the people who made Dubai's stuffed buns sell out in less than 2 hours. And Lin created a sales legend as a result, earning a whopping 1.5 million spirit stones in a single day. These were all stuffed buns that he had steamed in the ancient Taichu realm before storing in his storage ring. It was all thanks to the frying pan that Lin was able to continue to generate wealth. On this day, Lin took Tina to class as usual to satisfy her curiosity and thirst for knowledge. Meanwhile, Xiaozi found a place to study the history of the Tai-Chu continent in order to better understand this world. Xue Zhantian was taught all kinds of spell techniques by the white-scale wolf god. Both of them were savage beasts, so they shared a common language. The other beast pets weren't idling around either. All of them were taking advantage of the superb cultivation environment in the heavenly court to continue their cultivation. After a day of classes, Lin had completely recovered, and he decided to carry out his final plan, which was to complete the system mission for the body of the war god. It took an hour to absorb 1 golden realm essence crystal, and it would take over 4 days to absorb 100 golden realm essence crystals. And Lin had even applied for a leave of absence for this. On a certain mountain peak within Xiaoxian United University, Tina spread open her arms, and a white barrier of light appeared around them, isolating them from the outside world. And Lin looked up at the figure in the jade dress before him with a smile. Xiaolan, this is the territory of the Celestial Court, and Tina is here to protect me, so you don't have to worry. Su Xiaolan sat on a white rock and gazed at the scenery in the distance. A few strands of her jet-black hair fluttered in the wind, revealing her beautiful and serene profile. She placed a long sword by her side with a smile on her face. What? I've only just arrived, and you're already chasing me away? And Lin immediately waved his hands. Of course not. I didn't mean that. I just didn't want you to waste your time here. It's not a waste of time. I'm just curious, so I came to see you. Su Xiaolan turned to point at the glittering golden beauty, and a sharp light flashed through her eyes. Then you have to explain to me what this thing is. And Lin wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. While he was absorbing the golden realm essence crystal, Su Xiaolan had come to visit him. He looked at Su Xiaolan with a sincere expression. This is my disciple's fault. I'm only responsible for absorbing the realm essence crystals. This kind of hobby really has nothing to do with me. Tina can testify for me. You're right, Giant and Lin. Tina nodded in affirmation. All right, I'll believe that you don't have that kind of fetish. You go ahead, I'll leave after a while. Su Xiaolan pursed her lips, and Lin heaved a sigh of relief upon seeing that Su Xiaolan really wasn't angry or disdainful. He then began to focus on absorbing the energy within the golden realm essence crystals. Time passed by slowly, and nothing out of the ordinary happened. From time to time, beast pets or friends would come over to check on him. And Lin's body was like a bottomless pit that could absorb energy from the golden realm essence crystals without any limit. On the 4th night, 9 pillars of light suddenly shot into the sky from a certain mountain on the campus of Xiaoxian United University. The entire continent began to tremor, and countless students raised their heads to look at the pillars of light in the distance. Red flames, golden sharpness, blue waves, green vitality, and yellow aura. These 5 pillars of light were the most dazzling, and they shot straight into the heavens like gargantuan pillars. They then formed an extremely fearsome energy formation in the sky before converging together and crashing down toward the ground. The 2 pillars of light of wind and lightning were like coiling dragons, one of which was bright and the other dark, creating a beautiful contrast between yin and yang. This time, the commotion didn't just affect the students. Even countless teachers were alarmed. They all rose into the air and flew toward the source of the pillars of light. The closer they got, the more they could sense just how powerful the aura was. One after another, the pillars of light flew toward the source of the pillars of light. This aura is way too terrifying. Is it a cultivation method or a divine ability? Sigh, which mighty figure came to our university to cultivate? Why didn't they inform us in advance? Could it be that the principal has returned? I think I know who it is. A tall and slender woman in fashionable clothes, sitting atop a book, spoke as she adjusted her red-rimmed glasses. She suddenly recalled a certain student in her class who wanted to apply for leave to cultivate. Teacher Yuing, who is he? A teacher asked. He's in Lin, Yuing replied. All the teachers. Holy F***, CK, it's him again. But if it's him, then it makes sense. A faint white barrier of light enshrouded the center of the 9 pillars of light, isolating it from the detection and intrusion of outsiders. The pillars of light didn't last for long before they began to dissipate. However, the powerful aura emanating from the figure at the center of the white barrier of light did not disappear. And Lin had already made his way out of the white barrier of light, and the ancient golden seal on his forehead flashed incessantly. At that moment, all the spectators, regardless of whether they were students or teachers, were struck by the domineering aura of absolute supremacy. Shui Zhantian fell to his knees again upon seeing this, and his round body sprawled onto the ground. Even Xiao Zhe was extremely astonished. Not only could he sense a domineering aura emanating from Lin's body, but he could also sense an aura of eternity and immortality. And Lin withdrew his aura, and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. I'm invincible. He turned toward Su Xiaolan, who was standing alone nearby. Su Xiaolan / me. Whoosh! Su Xiaolan drew her long sword as flames burst forth from its scabbard. A golden sword projection flashed through the sky, crashing down upon Lin with the power to incinerate all things. The sword projection, which was imbued with the power of the vermilion bird, lit up heaven and earth as its terrifying temperatures caused the space around it to twist and warp, and all the plants within a radius of over a kilometer were instantly reduced to ashes. And Lin's pupils contracted at the sight of the terrifying sword projection. In the next instant, his body was inundated by golden flames, and the massive mountain behind him was sliced in half. Gasp! Everyone drew a sharp intake of breath. What a terrifying sword projection! Was he really trying to King kill someone? This couple sure has a unique way of interacting. Dioscorea Kankengensis wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and calmed himself down with a smile. What I'm more concerned about right now is whether classmate Lin is dead or not. Flying Sword God spoke with a concerned expression. Shui Zhantian was also given a huge fright. You reap what you sow. Master, is your habit of seeking abuse as soon as you make a breakthrough ultimately going to get you killed? In the distance, Vice Principal Yuhua looked on at the slowly collapsing mountain with a sense of weariness in his heart. He felt like it was time to come up with a school rule for protecting the environment. Otherwise, if these freaks continued to wreak havoc every day, the university's scenic spots would be destroyed sooner or later. Why didn't he realize that students were so destructive? Cough, cough. Holy F***, CK. Xiaolan, are you trying to murder your husband? And Lin crawled up from a pile of rubble with an extremely disheveled expression. Su Xiaolan, stared at Lin with a hint of surprise on her face. Huh, your skin is so thick now. Whoosh! Another sword projection sliced through the sky. This time, an extremely vast and transcendent power was imbued within the sword projection. Everyone felt as if they could see a white holy beast with its wings spread open as it pounced directly toward Lin. No. And Lin yelled as his body was completely submerged within the sword projection. The white flaming sword slashed across several miles, like a white light that could burn the heavens. Everything in its path was destroyed, and several mountain peaks in the distance were also chopped off. Vice Principal Yuhua was a little dumbstruck by the scenes unfolding before him. He couldn't care less about anything else as he charged over to stop this earth-shattering domestic violence. Chapter 589. All of the students who didn't know what was going on were shocked by the terrifying sword strike. Even those who were close to Su Xiaolan and Enlin were shocked. My God, did Enlin get into a fight with Xiaolan? Su Qianyun covered her mouth with a hand as she stared at the events unfolding on the mountain with astonishment on her face. I feel like there's something fishy going on here. Weren't they on good terms before this? Xianyuan Cheng pondered this for a moment. A faint smile appeared on Lu Qianhuan's face. They're just courting death. What kind of person would tell others to attack them after mastering a divine technique? It's no wonder that Xiaolan is mad at you for using such a method to express your joy. Is no one concerned about whether classmate Lin is dead or not? Tang Shimin asked with a shocked expression. Everyone rolled their eyes at Tang Shimin but didn't say anything. Tang Shimin. And Lin's figure appeared again amid a cloud of dust. His clothes were in tatters, but his skin was completely unscathed. Stop. Xiaolan, that's enough. As soon as they met, he immediately waved his hand. After Su Xiaolan's vermilion bird bloodline was infused into her sword strike, its power was comparable to that of a return to Void Stage Cultivator. Even so, it was unable to leave a single mark on Enlin's body. No way, he's still fine. Su Xiaolan was truly astonished this time. Her brows perked up as the dragon sparrow sword in her hand began to ring again, and an even more terrifying aura began to emanate from it. Wait. Right at this moment, a middle-aged man with bushy eyebrows and large eyes appeared beside Su Xiaolan and intervened. Stop fighting. It's not good to injure the flowers and plants in a battle like this. If you really want to fight and flirt, do it outside of the school. Su Xiaolan blushed upon hearing this, and she silently sheathed her long sword. And Lin heaved a sigh of relief upon seeing this, and he turned to Vice Principal Yuhua with a grateful expression. The Vice Principal of Yuhua glared at Lin and warned, If you cause any mountain to collapse again, you will have to pay for it. And Lin's face twitched. Why are you looking at me like that? Shouldn't you be saying that to Su Xiaolan? This farce quickly calmed down, and everyone left with some unsatisfied expressions on their faces. I didn't expect classmate Su Xiaolan to be so strong already. The magnificence of that sword strike was much more powerful than our sword immortal teacher. Senior and Lin's skin is really thick. He actually didn't get injured after taking that sword attack head-on. What's the point? None of them are fighting back. How boring. Where's my God and who's always throwing insults at heaven and earth? I agree. I also want to see the two of them fight. It must be very exciting. I feel that ever since the free-for-all battle, Senior and Lin's style has changed. He's been a coward all the way. Could it be that God obtained the inheritance of the turtle? Bullshit. Since he's so powerful, he must have inherited at least the Xian Wu level. Su Xiaolan made her way over to Enlin's side and poked his muscles with a finger. They were a little tough and a little bouncy, and they didn't feel any different from normal. She asked curiously, What kind of divine ability did you cultivate? How come it's so powerful? And Lin puffed out his chest with a smug smile. It's called the body of the war god. Su Xiaolan rolled her eyes. What a tacky name. She then asked, So your skin is so thick, can you still feel pain? Of course. When you slashed me just then, it hurt a lot. It's just that there were no scars. And Lin was telling the truth. Pain had nothing to do with whether or not his skin had been sliced open. He was hoping that Su Xiaolan would comfort him after saying this. To his surprise, Su Xiaolan heaved a sigh of relief and nodded. It's all right, Enlin. The phenomenon of heaven and earth brought about by Enlin's body of the war god once again created a massive stir in the entire campus. As for the person in question, Enlin had already returned to his dorm room with Su Xiaolan and the others. In order to celebrate his successful seclusion, he held another frying pan banquet. In reality, this couldn't really be called seclusion. After all he did was absorb and absorb, and he managed to cultivate a divine ability, and Lin hadn't even tried going into seclusion, and there was no need for him to do so anyway. At the frying pan banquet, the Immortal Spirit Tower is going to open tomorrow, and it's open for 3 days. Do you guys want to go? Tang Shimin asked as he ate. Immortal Spirit Tower? What's that? And Lin's expression turned blank. A warm smile appeared on Shen Yuan Cheng's face. And Lin, you were in seclusion for a few days, so I'll tell you about it. The Immortal Spirit Tower is located in a restricted area of our campus, and there are wisps of divine intents left behind by the mighty sages of the celestial court within the tower. Students can unleash their divine intents into the tower to battle against these mighty figures. Generally speaking, only fifth-year students have an opportunity to enter the Immortal Spirit Tower before graduation. However, third-year and fourth-year students who have reached the spirit-nurturing final stage can also enter the tower, and Lin's curiosity was piqued. Then, what are the benefits of entering the Immortal Spirit Tower to battle mighty figures? The Immortal Spirit Tower has a total of 99 levels, and you'll receive additional spirit stones and pills from the Celestial Court for every level you advance to. Tang Shimin replied with a smile. Is there anything else? Filthy rich and didn't really care about these things. Tang Shimin's face convulsed slightly upon seeing Enlin's expression. As long as you can pass level 80, you'll be inducted into the university's Hall of Fame. Oh, I was already inducted into the Hall of Fame when I was a first-year university student. Is there anything else? And Lin had been inducted into the Hall of Fame as an exception, so he didn't think much of it. Tang Shimin almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He paused for a moment before continuing. If your aptitude is exceptional and you receive the acknowledgement of the divine intents of the mighty figures on the 80th level or higher, then you'll have a chance to receive their spell techniques. And Lin's interest was finally piqued here, and his eyes lit up. Senior student Tang, which level did you reach? Su Qianyun turned to Tang Shimin with curiosity in her mellow voice. A smug smile appeared on Tang Shimin's face. I'm sorry, but I made it to level 70. I came first in our third-year university. Oh! Everyone in the room exclaimed in surprise. That's because aside from him, Zhua Qiubing was the only other spirit-nurturing final stage cultivator in our third-year university. The two of them came first in the competition. Sure, there was a wave of disdain in the room. Tang Shimin. Then, Lu Qianhuan, you were a fourth-year university student at the time, right? What level did you reach? Su Qianyin turned to look at Lu Qianhuan curiously. 87. Lu Qianhuan pursed her lips in resignation. Oh, that's so impressive. Another wave of exclamations erupted in the room. Much more impressive than senior student Tang. You can't say that about senior student Tang. After all, he's only a spirit-nurturing final stage cultivator. That's true. We're all at least half-step soul formation stage cultivators, so we should be able to make it past level 70. Let's aim for level 80 and enter the Hall of Fame. That's right, if senior student Tang can make it to level 70, why can't we? Su Xiaolan, Su Qianyin, Shen Yuan Cheng, and the others all looked at each other with knowing smiles on their faces. Tears streamed down Tang Shimin's face as he felt like he had been dealt a heavy blow to his heart. Couldn't they just talk like normal people? Did they have to do this? At the same time, he was also feeling extremely remorseful. Why did he have to flex in front of these freaks? Everyone chatted as they ate, and they all decided to go to the Immortal Spirit Tower the next day. This was a free opportunity after all. Chapter 590. Early in the morning, within a restricted area of Shoshin United University. There were layers of chains that resembled clouds and mist that sealed off the space within a radius of 15 kilometers. In that sealed space there was an incomparably huge, towering green celestial pagoda. The Immortal Pagoda had a total of 99 levels. The bottom level was the most spacious with a radius of 1.5 kilometers, which was more than enough to accommodate 10,000 students. As the pagoda rose higher and higher, each level became narrower and narrower until the top level was only about 5 kilometers in radius. At this moment, there were already 10,000 students gathered outside the pagoda. All of them were fifth-year students who were about to graduate. Stuffed buns. Freshly made stuffed buns, ignored by Dubai. The sudden peddler was so out of place with the surrounding atmosphere. And Lynn was selling stuffed buns, ignored by Dubai in the restricted area, due to the fact that the Immortal Spirit Tower had opened earlier than usual, and Lynn had no choice but to switch to selling stuffed buns, no matter when or where. One could never give up on one source of wealth. This was a fundamental principle that Filthy Rich and adhered to, and Lynn's appearance created quite a stir within the restricted area. Huh, isn't that classmate in Lynn? He's selling stuffed buns here. He's probably here to participate in the Immortal Spirit Tower. He's already a third-year student, so selling stuffed buns is probably just a passing coincidence. I was just worried that I wouldn't be able to eat stuffed buns ignored by Dubai today. Let's go buy some as well. Many students swarmed toward Lynn, and soon, all of Lynn's stuffed buns had been sold out. Some of the students even began to shed tears as they ate the stuffed buns, and Lynn was given a massive fright upon seeing this. He knew that his stuffed buns were delicious, but wasn't it a little bit of an exaggeration to say that they were so delicious that they made people cry? Could it be that they were so disgusting that they were crying? Right at this moment, his question was answered by the complaints of the students. Wow, these stuffed buns are so delicious. Yeah, I won't be able to eat such delicious stuffed buns after graduation. Sigh, the stuffed buns ignored by Dubai are a specialty of the Alliance of Cultivation after all. I have to buy some before I leave and store them in my storage ring. And Lynn understood now. It turned out that the fifth-year seniors were about to graduate, and at a specific location, touching something hurt. Although they said they couldn't bear to part with steamed bun, they probably just couldn't bear to leave this school. They also couldn't bear to part with their classmates, friends, and teachers for cultivators. 5 years was like the blink of an eye. But could it really be calculated in this way? And Lynn had only spent 3 years at the university, but he had made many friends and made many precious and happy memories. Everything in the university had been very good, but after leaving the university, everything had changed. For the seniors, this was a farewell to the verdant and beautiful campus, so they would shed tears of sadness. With this in mind, and Lin couldn't help but turn his gaze toward Lu Qianhuan. She was also a fifth-year university student who was about to graduate. Lu Qianhuan had also bought a steamer full of stuffed buns and was currently enjoying them. Her little mouth wriggled, her fair and tender cheeks puffed up, and her lively purple eyes narrowed in happiness. She didn't seem to be affected by the emotions of her classmates as she continued to gorge on the buns in an adorable and alluring manner. Students, the Immortal Spirit Tower is about to be opened, so please gather here. An elderly man with an extremely vast aura stood in front of the Immortal Spirit Tower with a smile on his face. His name was Bai Zhong, and he was the guardian of this restricted area. His cultivation base was clearly at the return to void stage. After the assembly was complete, over 10,000 streams of divine intent shot forth from his hand before landing on each of the students. These were the entry passes for the students to enter the Immortal Spirit Tower, as well as the spell technique that would record the number of levels each student had reached. Within the Immortal Spirit Tower, all of your cultivation bases will be restricted to 1% of your original cultivation base, and you won't be able to use weapons, talismans, pills, or any other external objects. You can only use your own powers to battle the divine intents of the mighty figures of the past, Bai Zhong explained in a slow voice. His words were like a brand that was branded into the hearts of all the students, making it impossible for them to forget or ignore them. This was a rule that everyone was aware of, so they didn't pay much heed to it. Over 10,000 students poured into the first level of the Immortal Spirit Tower. The floor was paved with white jade stones, and it was extremely spacious. There were 4 huge cauldrons with flames burning in the 4 corners of the floor. "Wow, this place is huge!" Su Qianyan exclaimed as she surveyed her surroundings with curiosity in her eyes. Lu Qianhuan explained as if she had been through this before. "The first 80 levels are all cleared in one go, but even if we're standing together, it's still a one-on-one battle, which means that there will be over 10,000 mighty figures unleashing their divine intents later." "That's awesome." Su Qianyan blinked, her dreamy eyes with an adorable expression. Boom! At this moment, a burst of mighty power descended from the sky, making all of the students feel as if their bodies had been completely emptied. The restrictive power of the Immortal Spirit Tower is beginning to appear. Tang Shimin looked up with battle intent surging from his body. Aside from all of the rewards available in the Immortal Spirit Tower, the opportunity to battle mighty figures of the past would be immensely beneficial to one's combat prowess, as well as their observation of Tao. All of a sudden, countless projections materialized in the sky. They were either wielding spears or swords, and all of them pounced toward the students on the ground below. All of these projections had targets in mind, and each of them corresponded to a student. The first 20 levels seemed to all be projections of divine intents from spirit-nurturing stage cultivators, Tang Shimin observed. Most of the 5th-year students were at the Tao body stage, so even with 99% of their power suppressed, it was still extremely difficult for them to face off against the projections of spirit-nurturing stage cultivators. Soon, there were some students who weren't fast enough and were slain by the projections of divine intents. Some of them had their chests punctured and fell unconscious. Generally speaking, the projections of divine intents couldn't kill, but they could knock students unconscious. Almost all of the students from the 100th class had been wiped out. There were also many casualties among the other classes, and some of them were caught up in fierce battles. A heroic spirit in the form of a female with long flowing hair and a spear in her hand pounced toward Enlin's heart. Enlin glanced at the woman, and his hand shot out like a gust of wind. He slapped the woman to the ground, and her body instantly disintegrated into nothingness. The projections of divine intents required a very long time to recover, and it required a lot of energy as well. This was also why the Immortal Spirit Tower was only open once a year. After vanquishing all of the enemies around him, Enlin began to survey his surroundings. Close to 2,000 people had already fallen unconscious. 7,000 had already finished their battles, and there were still 1,000 people who were still engaged in fierce battles. For example, Su Xiaolan and Shen Yuancheng, they had all KO'd their opponents in a single exchange. 15 minutes later, there were only a few dozen people left. Another 15 minutes later, there were only a handful of people left. What was it like to have thousands of spectators spectating their battle? One of the female students was flushed with embarrassment, but she was still unable to defeat the projection of divine intents. She was on the brink of tears, and she felt extremely humiliated. In the end, she lost her composure and was cut down by the projection of divine intents. The female student finally broke down and fainted with tears of humiliation and indignation. And Lin buried his face in his hands. What a tragedy! Another 15 minutes later, there was still a male student who had yet to finish his battle. That male student seemed to be very proficient in using vital energy to protect his body. Yellow vital energy materialized into a suit of indestructible armor. The projection of divine intents was unable to break through his defenses. His offensive prowess was insufficient, and he was unable to kill his opponent. Thus, the two of them were locked in a stalemate. Thump, 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 bang, 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 clatter, clatter, clatter. Puff, puff, puff. Time slowly passed by. I finally understand why the immortal spirit tower takes so many days to open, and Lin spoke expressionlessly. Don't worry, let's just watch the show. Xian Yuancheng offered words of consolation. I really want to help him. And Lin gritted his teeth. That works too, but you'll be eliminated. Lu Qianhuan heaved a forlorn sigh. Thus, over 7,000 students silently looked on as a male student battled with a projection of divine intents, creating an extremely peculiar scene.